welcome everyone to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and friends. And look, one of the biggest panels of the year so far, but there is a Partridge Family member missing. He's sick. Could you imagine? Everborn Saga has a migraine. He is in the dark with an ice pack on the head, and that's because this ABK thing knocked him unconscious this morning at 7 a.m. when I woke him up and I called him and I was devastated. But folks, listen, the whole show is probably going to be dedicated to what happened today. Honestly, folks, I said it to everyone on the panel already. I was completely stunned. I found it to be pretty shocking that the cloud, of all things, was what the CMA actually used to block the deal. We know that Microsoft and ABK are going to try and fight this. I think it's a losing battle, to be honest with you. We have a good friend of the show, Luke, who's going to be joining us for the entire episode, is going to break down exactly what the irrationality clause to the tribunal that's known as CAT and what that is going to mean and do for ultimately do for Microsoft. It's funny because there's a lot of conspiracy theories. I call, some people call corruption. It's honestly, when you take a real just step back and you look at what happened, Sony obviously is the winner here, right? Sony won. Their antics were enough to push regulators around the world over, even though they just posted a 400% increase in March year over year for the PlayStation 5. But I think, again, PlayStation wins because they are not going. Microsoft is not going to own Call of Duty, right? I don't think Call of Duty marketing deal ever goes back to Sony. At least I don't think Microsoft will have anything to do with that. Neither Activision either. I believe they're going to drop the bag, and that's going to be marketed for eternity on Xbox. I don't think they ever go to work with Sony ever again. That's again, we'll discuss. But here, what is really shocking is Pixelbit G, who's a good friend of this community, great friend of this particular channel, put out a tweet where it almost seemed as if the CMA was suggesting that because Apple and Google are such dominant forces in their considered duopoly, Microsoft wouldn't even had a chance anyway, which I saw the writing for myself, and I'll read it verbatim. I was actually blown away. I'm like, wait a second. I thought the CMA is to protect competition, not continually funnel money in this duopoly to Apple and Google, who have that region of the world locked down. But folks, we have a monster panel. Everyone is here to talk about it. There's not going to be any crying in baseball, folks. Listen, like I said this to Pong, I said this to Kay Asante. Mrs. Boom and I are trying right now to buy our first home. That's what we're laser focused on. And if this deal being blocked somehow hurt that, then I would be physically upset because we are not going to get our first home. That's not what's happening here, folks. I'm disappointed, but I'm still a gamer at heart. Yes, I wanted Xbox to have this monster group of studios help make new games for the platform. It would have been pretty cool to have Call of Duty in Game Pass each and every year, right along with Diablo 4 releasing in a couple of weeks, about 5 weeks, right? But listen, at the end of the day, folks, there's a lot of games to be played. Microsoft is now going to maybe have to take off the nice guy gloves. But we're going to get into that in a second. Let's get into the introduction so we can talk about what happened today. First of all, Pong Soul. This is my brother, ladies and gentlemen. I have not had a chance to work with him in like forever. Pong, my brother, welcome back. I love you, dude. It's great to have you on the panel.
Perfect night for an invite, Boom. It has been way too long. It's been a few months since I think I've been on one of your shows. So it is great to be back. Great to be here with this panel. A lot of these guys I haven't seen on panel in a long time. So great to see you all, brothers. Of course, we thought the conversation was going to be a little bit different today, but that is what it is. Yeah. Never say that this industry is boring by any stretch of the imagination. So we're going to have a good time. We're going to talk a lot of good talk, and let's get down to it, Boom. Great to be here. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Another good brother of mine who have not been on the show in a minute, but he's here for us. OBM, what's going
So,
on, dude? How's everything?
yeah, good man. It's been too many minutes, right? And I'm disappointed that Everborn isn't here today. That he had to duck out with his headache, but because definitely felt like somebody needed to challenge him. I think he was getting a bit of a monopoly on that nascent market called gaming conspiracy theories, and I was here to, to try to battle him on that stuff. But yeah, man, definitely some out of left field news. Not just because of the block, but the reason why, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Not since Arya Stark was the one to take out the White Walker has something been so out of left field, but. looking forward to delving into it. I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about today, not just in terms of like what's going on, but I think also what's next, right? Like what's that future look like?
Yeah, it is going to be one of those situations where, I mean, first of all, podcasting around the globe, regardless of where you listen to your favorite podcaster or casts. The ABK thing is only, listen, we're going to have to talk about games. And quite frankly, I'm very excited for that. I'm not going to sit here and try and play a card of no disappointment. I'm disappointed. I was actually quite taken aback because I was expecting for this to pass based on the wording from the CMA initially moving Sony off of the board for concern. The cloud thing is incredibly baffling, but we will get to that. Luke Steele, what's going on, dude? Thanks so much for joining us all the way from the UK. He is an attorney who has worked with and against the CMA folks. Luke, how you feeling, brother? Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, and happy to be back. It's what a day, right? I was actually in France randomly today, so I had no internet access at all, but I knew the decision was coming, and then when I turned on my phone, it was just crazy, just to see everything come across my Twitter feed and stuff. So, yeah, it's been really interesting. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, we have a lot to get into. There's a lot of questions. There's some conspiracy theories out there. There are thoughts that Microsoft is going to fight this tooth and nail, not to pay the $3 billion to Activision because the deal ultimately will get blocked or it won't. If there's going to be an extension filed because they feel that they could appeal to the tribunal known as CAT and have that decision of irrationality be brought into the forefront of the conversation. I don't know. I just don't want another year and a half of this, folks, to be honest with you, because I still look, and it's funny, I said this to Everborn. I think ultimately, right, the white whale is ABK. And if Microsoft would have gotten or got past the first hurdle, one of the big hurdles, meaning the CMA, it would have been for the record books, right? But because of ABK, and this still bothers me, it still hurts my heart. You've heard me say this many, many times on the shows, folks. This is disappointing. My bigger disappointment, and again, folks, this is just me talking, in my opinion. The biggest miss of the whole thing is an ABK. Yes, it sucks, and it's a big one. But I really look back and I think, could you imagine a world, folks, where ABK is just doing their thing? There was no sale, and Microsoft picks up Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and 50 IP, one of which is Laura Croft. And one of the most famous women in gaming is now going to be an Xbox exclusive. Like, I mean, it literally the change in Phil Spencer's freaking couch would have paid for these unbelievable IP and two Sony level studios that, given 3 years, could easily deliver a third-person, story-driven, over-the-shoulder adult content type of game that Xbox gamers have been asking for. So for me, if ABK doesn't exist, we have that. And Laura Croft's his first party. Could you imagine that? So it's actually a double loss because they lost out on that because they were laser focused and couldn't make a move because of ABK, and they still lost ABK. But we'll get into it. Hargeet Chani, I love the background. It is hilarious. And you're still smiling. I actually really are looking forward to hearing your hot take on this because I think that you're just as stunned as most of us.
I chuckled. That's it. Like, this was always the toss-up, and they're always going to have an interesting take. But whatever. That's really all it is. Essentially, this is going to be fighting for another year, another 2 years. That's all this is. It just drags it out. The worst part of this isn't for us. It's actually for the employees of ABK.
Yes, the human factor, which I talked about. Yes.
Crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they don't leave, but at this point, they have to just make the assumption that this is going to drag on, and they got to make life choices. And, you know, the working conditions, they matter. They matter more. You know, you can only wait so long, and this could mean a lot of trouble for ABK, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, right? I mean, government's just apparently the CMA did not care at all about the employees. Wasn't even part of it.
No.
So,
it's the mysterious cloud that does not even have a marketplace. And one of the interesting quotes from I think it was a very long document. I'm not sure if it's a 210-page thing. It's incredibly long. One of the comments.
Maybe they did mention it.
yeah. One of the comments, Hargeet, was that other platforms don't have the means to make a challengeable cloud gaming, and that's why we have to protect competition. I mean, whose problem is that? Competition is we put something out, you don't have it. Well, if you want to be a part of the conversation, you got to make it and spend the investment dollars. Microsoft did that, so because they did that and they did it well, they're being punished ultimately.
Wait. So nobody else could do that. Amazon didn't just put out Luna. Google didn't put out Stadia.
Correct.
Boostroid didn't put out theirs.
100 million subscribers.
NVIDIA didn't put out theirs. I could keep going. Like, there's many people who are doing cloud gaming.
Yeah.
Not to mention 2 companies that were bought by PlayStation that also do cloud gaming, and they have a service today. Like, what?
Yeah.
it's a bogus statement. It's total crap.
Yeah.
Like, people are making these things. They're doing it, right? So it's whatever.
Yeah, to quote everyone from this morning, Kayasante, he said something to the effect of they were always going to block the deal. They just used this as a way to say, hey, look, we're not protecting Sony. We said cloud. How you feeling, brother? Welcome.
Oh, I'm feeling good, man. Work has been really busy today, and then out of nowhere, I look online and the salt is flowing, the tears, and Everborn Saga is sick. Strategic, I think, is a coincidence, as they say.
We'll talk more about this on Saturdays. Podcast, because
we'll definitely be talking about it on Saturday for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, we will definitely be talking about it. But no, this is an interesting place we find ourselves, man. I'll wait till we get into the stories proper, but. Man, it's what a day, I'm reading all the takes. A lot of people are on my Twitter feed doing the little pimp dance, and I'm just like, get out of here with all this ridiculousness right now.
Yeah,
so,
it
is what it is.
I would tell Xbox fans not to be bothered. Please don't interact. Don't feed the trolls.
There's Everborn Saga in the chat with many eyeballs. He has a headache, but he's got many eyeballs right now. No, I understand why it's been one hell of a day. So it will be interesting. It will be interesting. I'm looking forward to having the conversation about what they do now and hearing Luke and a few other folks discuss what's going on. I will say right off the top, before we even get into it proper, I will say one more chance that I have to publicly take my hat off and give the flowers to the man, the Wandering Dutch, for an amazing show. If you guys haven't checked it out, you need to stop, make some time, go check it out after the show. It is so good. So good. I've gone back and watched it multiple times, and my wish list has grown exponentially because of this show. So thank you, sir. And let's get into it this evening.
Yeah, Dutch. First of all, unbelievable achievement. The indie show that you put on this past Saturday, I was there for the entire thing live. It was It was phenomenal. I would even dare say that there are several shows and showrunners that should look to you for involvement because the pacing immediately jumped off the page. And P.S. by the way, I had no idea I was taking up that much megabit space with my thing because the next time I'm going to do what Han Solo and Steel Rain did as a tandem, except I'm just going to be one Craig and one Mr. Boom. I'm going to say, I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to keep it moving. I thought you needed a whole breakdown. And I was like, wait a second. This isn't my show. This is Dutch's show. This is the Dutchies. Dutch, congratulations on an absolutely astounding indie showcase. Folks, please, for the love of Joe, if you love games, and I don't care what console you bow down to.
Yeah, there were a lot of PlayStation games on there, too.
There were a lot
games.
of PlayStation.
Yeah,
Go over and check out Wandering Dutch's indie showcase, which he spent ridiculous amount of time doing. It's phenomenal. Dutch, how you feeling, brother? Welcome.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Had a lot of fun creating that show, and of course, hats off to many of you here who had was awesome for you all to take part. Pong, Boom, Santi, Everborn in the chat with his migraine. But no, it was a pleasure, and of course, like I said, the showcase is to highlight games on every platform, and I think we did that pretty well this year. We covered everything, whether that be Steam, VR, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, Epic, mobile. Like everybody had a shout this year, and there was a significant amount on every platform. So, it was absolutely awesome. Great to hear the feedback, specifically around the pacing, because that's the one thing I think you need to nail. If the pacing's off at all, you can either make it drag or it can make the show feel too quick. Needs to be just in the middle. So it was an absolutely awesome. It was awesome to see everybody turn out as well and enjoy it. But I'm looking forward already because this is only one of two shows this year, and
right.
already got some big names lined up for the second one. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to that towards the end of the year. It will definitely be better than the Keeleys. I can almost guarantee you that. But that's just my biased take on it. Mag, what's going on, brother? I mean, listen. First of all, great secret news behind the scene. I can't share it with you folks, but good stuff as always. Very disappointing. One particular news, which you'll probably hear about in the trade
very soon.
Probably very soon. I saw something on it before you gave me the information, and I'm devastated because well, that's just what it is. But not only are you here today, you're going to be joining me tomorrow.
That is correct.
12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We lost somebody in the chat. Let's see if we can fix this branding.
He'll be right back. He said he'll be right back.
There's a giant Series X and S blocking my face now. There we go.
There we go. So you'll be joining me tomorrow at 12
I will.
For 70 minutes. We're going to be talking about the new Star Wars game being heralded as the greatest Star Wars game ever released so far, and it's even trumping the original Jedi Fallen Order. It's getting 10s across the board. As a matter of fact, Xbox Era, Jesse Norris gave it a 9.4 out of 10.
Fantastic. Wow. I look forward to talking about that tomorrow, but listen, we got some great panel members here, and of course, we've got some great guests here, Pong Soul, the mighty Luke Steele, and of course, OBM. Thank God OBM's not going to be talking about Halo tonight for once, so that's a relief, and I'm just kidding. But anyways, listen, we got a lot of things to talk about, and I just want to reassert once again, I know Asante and Boom and everybody sort of talked about it, I want to reassert my appreciation for what Dutch put together, and I didn't watch it live, I was working, but I did get to see it after the fact, and of course, we spoke about it within our group about what we thought about it, and it was wonderful. I look forward to seeing you taking on the Keeleys because I got to tell you, it had everything that was required to be a professional show, and all you just need is a stage now. So you know what I'm saying? Like we got to get it out there, got to share it out with people. We got to get it so people can say, "Look, at this guy's got talent. Let's get him to put together the next showcase for fill in the blank." Right? Let's get him out there. So that was a great show, Dutch. Just wanted to say that again. Anyways, listen, I'm not going to hold it up anymore. We got 7 people on this panel right now. Let's get into the show. We got a lot to talk about. Nothing really happened today, so it was a pretty slow news day. So we'll just talk about something. Yeah. Anyways, let's get into it.
You know, Keasante, you know Pixelbit G pretty well. As a matter of fact, he was
sir.
on your show just recently.
Yes, sir.
And
we call him the lore master.
The lore master, Pixelbit G, good friend of this particular program. You know, he put out a tweet that I thought was pretty interesting and worthy of a conversation, specifically with you. He says, with all of the words that the CMA.UK used to produce their 140 plus page letter, the key component here remains: protect the market leaders and screw consumers. Not sure if I've ever heard a ruling that says we will block the growth of a new market because of the old market leaders cannot pivot. And what he's referring to is in semi paragraphs E and F. And it says this: post transaction, Nintendo and SIE would remain market leaders in console, but the merger would allow Microsoft to steer the market towards a subscription-based model. And here's where F gets a little funky. Microsoft would use its cloud infrastructure to operate Xbox cloud gaming, something other market participants such as SIE cannot do. Building cloud infrastructure with Microsoft's capabilities would not be financially feasible to the other market participants.
Yes.
That is pretty freaking crazy. So because, I mean, again, folks, I'm paraphrasing here, okay? But because the other two market leaders will not pivot and will not invest the dollars to do what Microsoft has done, because Microsoft sees years, sometimes decades in front of them, and they say, well, we have to work now for tomorrow. And ultimately they're being penalized. This is crazy talk.
It's basically like saying, yes, we see you're playing with Jordan, so you get to use his sneakers, he gets to walk barefoot because that's the only thing that's fair. It's weird. It's weird and unreasonable how they went about it. There's so much to talk about, and there's so many folks, the brilliant individual here that need to get in. I will just say, when we started this whole conversation about this whole ABK thing, right? I said this on the show really early on, that the FTC was, by and large, the FTC and all the other regulatory bodies are all on basically the same page of big tech bad. They just were. But right early on the onset, it seemed like the FTC kind of went a little too mustache twirly and started using ridiculous, really unthought about arguments to make their point. So much so that the other regulatory bodies basically had to distance themselves and say, hey, by the way, the rubric you're using is wrong, right? They said to them. And by the way, they didn't say what you're asserting that they said as far as keeping Bethesda games exclusive and things like that. So because of that, it gave me hope that they would focus on the merit, because the merit is the only way you should be focused on.
Correct.
Even though, it looked like there was political ground being ceded everywhere, right?
Right.
Ultimately, with this result, and this is just me, with this result, it tells me that, they were still on that exact same page. They just found a different needle to thread to get exactly where they wanted to go anyway, right? Because if you really look at it, there are arguments to be made, and let's be 100% clear here. I think a lot of folks, maybe some are different than me on here, but my disappointment here is more, and I'm definitely disappointed. My disappointment here is more on the idea that precedent, law, all the stuff that exists that make you feel comfortable about the process don't exist if political headwinds are blowing faster. Right. Yeah. It means that the merit of the case, which should be where it begins and ends, gets moved in favor of political headwinds when there's enough fervor in the community and enough money on the ground to be dealt with. And to me, that's very, very disappointing. It's very disappointing. Right. It doesn't go further than that for me, because frankly, I don't play Call of Duty that much. I play the campaign. I'm one of those rare plebes that plays the campaign instead of the multiplayer, right? when all this news started blowing over and we all started talking about it, we were excited about the past IPs. That was another area that I was excited about. So the idea that this going forward or not going forward will hurt me as a gamer in any way, not at all, right? I was gonna end up buying Diablo 4 anyway. You know, all the games that I want to play, I will play, because lucky enough I'm able to do that with whatever hardware I have. So it's not about that. Honestly, if I have any qualms, it's about the fact that the excuse you're using is basically that, an excuse, right? It's a market that's kind of non-existent. They within the concerns that they noted, that they were noting, they said something to the effect of although Microsoft was offering remedies or offering deals for 10 years to all these different regulatory to all these different cloud competitors, what they saw and they thought was concerning was the fact that they're not offering it to multi-game cloud services. Let's be clear. When that was being adjudicated, there were no multi-game services that you could offer a deal to, except PlayStation, who refused to sign the deal. Right. They're the only multi-game service, right? A week, 2 weeks afterwards, well, guess what? Luna just decided to join the UK. So now there's another multi-game service, right? But they're the only multi-game service. Now, for those who don't understand what multi-game service is, a service you subscribe to, you get a bunch of different games, COD being one of them, versus GeForce Now, which is not a multi-game service. It's just you own it already, and now you get to play it in the cloud. So there are your differences, right? So the regulatory bodies literally gave Microsoft, as the man Pong Soul likes to say, and shout out to you, sir, a honey-do list. They gave them that list. And that's where all the weird names started coming up. People are like, who's Boosteroid? Yeah, it all came from the actual regulatory body's list, right? They gave them that list of these are the ones that we think might be harmed with the cloud services. And what did Microsoft do? You get a deal. You get a deal. Yeah. We saw that happen. They did not mention any service that had multi-game. And then they used that against them later to go, well, you didn't offer any multi-game services a deal. You didn't put any on the list. Because frankly, there are very few and far between that are actually multi-game services, besides Game Pass themselves and PlayStation Plus Premium and Luna, which at the time when that multi-game thing was being talked about was not in the UK or EU, right? They just joined recently. So all of that is to say that definitely what you were saying that you were talking with Everborn about, that's exactly what's going on here, in my humble opinion. They wanted an excuse. They couldn't use the ridiculous notions that the FTC were using because that was just a little too ridiculous. So they found their own needle to thread. A service that's literally like it's like the equivalent of saying we're not going to let your deal pass because an accessory to the market is more important than the market itself. That's literally what's happening here. Like a side feature, and you know it's a side feature because anyone that's tried it full bore, I'm looking at you, Stadia, has walked around turned with their tail between their legs. It's not ready for prime time. It is only a service that adds value to an existing market that's there right now, right? And the existing market being cloud, being console and PC and handheld, you know, and mobile, right? So I look forward to hearing some fiery takes from Hargeet and a few others, but I'm just genuinely just kind of like, I really, really hoped that they would follow the merit here, right? So we can go, oh, at least one of them did that. And it clearly looks like they didn't do that. They went down their own political path, you know, just like FTC went down their own political path. It is what it is. Now, the idea of, is this over versus, oh, they're going to keep fighting the good fight? I don't know if we'll talk about that, but like, honestly, and I'll pass the mic off after saying this. Honestly, seeing what Microsoft has done until now, which is unable to walk and chew gum at the same time, I hope they don't continue fighting the fight. Right? You've let your brand in the minds of your hardcore languish to a point where they're now grabbing the pitchforks coming for you, right? All in the hopes that today would be the day when you would then refocus on them. We've seen that you can't do both. Whether it be because, you know, the context of we want to look weak or we want whatever reason, you're not able to make your consumers happy, all the while handling this deal here. So if this means a question of, hey, Will they move forward and fight the good fight? I think it's a bit of a delay tactic. Could we see a world where they fight the good fight and still prevail? Hey, stranger things have happened. Like the CMA actually taking Microsoft's word for it and removing console as a part of the remedial concerns, right?
Yeah.
Weirder things have happened, so it could. But the question is, are we all willing to wait a year and change for that to then materialize? At this point, seeing how Microsoft moves when they're in the middle of this kind of thing, I say, unfortunately, cut bait and move on to what we came here for, which is the damn games. That's all I'll say. Let's move on.
Asante, one quick sentence. I'm not going to...
Please.
Whatever.
That's all right,
Here's
brother.
the thing. They have to cut it off. And you know why? Because the competition ain't slowing down. They're speeding up.
Yes.
They're
Now,
speeding up. They're gaining steam.
They're gaining steam. I see what you're doing.
Oh.
If you showed us you could walk and chew gum at the same time, hey, your console gamers are happy, your
Right.
platform gamers are happy, while you're over here fighting the good fight, keep going. Because in my world, I still think the merit should be the beginning and the middle and the end of any of these kind of procedures.
truth.
The
evidence.
truth. That's right. Well,
right now
rather than some political wins. It irks me from within that's where we are. But since you can't walk and chew gum at the same time, and I have to choose, go get another studio. Go focus on your games. You lost some money. Move forward.
Yeah, there is a lot they can do. I know. Listen, folks, I'm with you. First of all, we're closing in on 900. Folks. I mean, I got the hands crossed here. Can we break 1K?
Can we cross 1,000? Let's do it tonight, guys.
Today would be the day. Would cross 1,000.
Yes, sir.
Dutch, I want to go to you next because you got to skedaddle out of here. You got to get up early. Post Up, who I sent the invite to, he's incredibly busy. I mean, Post Up is absolutely amazing. He put a post, and it's very interesting because it really does go in line with exactly what Kay Asante just said. And Post Up, obviously, there's Florian Muller, there's Hogue Law, there's Benji Sales. I mean, these fine folks, if you're not following any of them, please, by all means, Boomstick approved every one of them. Post Up put up something which is pretty interesting, Dutch.
Boom.
Yes, sir.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think the headache one is in the chat. He's in the private DMs. He might be here.
He's here. Hold on a sec. Let me fix it. Let's fix it. Go. Yay, Everborn. He's here. Okay.
I'm only here for like 2 minutes because I do feel terrible. It's not a headache. It's like a flu kind of thing.
Okay. All right. So let's get your 2-minute take, and then we will go to Dutch because Dutch has got to get out of here.
You sound like somebody who just
well.
heard the news. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually called him at 7:03 this morning, and he's like, "Yeah, Boom. Well, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Again, they're not going to block me from buying a house, which is what me and Mr. Boom want to do.
You never know. Sony might have it out for you. They may.
They might.
To the mortgage people.
Jim's going to outbid you.
They're going to outbid us in 2024, and then we're not going to get our home. God damn it! All right, so Everborn, let's get your hot take. I know you're not feeling well, brother. Thanks so much for popping in. Talk about it, brother. Let's get your tinfoil hat twirling mustache take.
So we know that they sort of turned back the console or council. I know that I have a fan that is worried about how I say that, but the console SLC because their math was wrong, right?
Right.
Now I want to point you to some math that they have used for deciding Microsoft's dominance in the cloud space. They are conflating all Game Pass numbers, revenue, with actual market share in cloud gaming. Right? But not everyone that uses Game Pass uses cloud gaming. And the revenue stream for Game Pass is not from cloud gaming. It is, from people on Xbox that download the games, people on PC that download the games and play them. So is their math actually looking at the correct, are they level setting correctly is the question. right? Because they completely compared 1 year of losses to 5 years of gains.
Right.
Are they conflating the revenue of Game Pass with Microsoft's market position in cloud? So I think
question number one: Do we don't get to see that breakdown? But do the regulators get to see the breakdown of cloud users versus just standard Game Pass users?
I'm sure this is info Microsoft would have provided had they asked for it.
Okay,
right?
so
In the
maybe they
same
don't
way,
have it.
the 1 to 5 years, because Microsoft learns after they put out the report, right? There was some talk of Microsoft knowing, getting the document beforehand and having time to iron things out. But it seems that this has come to as a shock to everyone, right? There was a tweet yesterday that the Microsoft Twitter account had to delete that says, "How about we get an early, we sign off early, we've earned it," and they had to delete that. So they were confident. Lulu Chen also sounded confident. Everyone sounded confident. So this seems as though it has come as a surprise. And I say that because whenever they knew about bad news beforehand, you'd hear some weird news of them coming out and complaining or signing a deal or something. You never heard that this time.
Right.
So I wonder if that's going to be their attack pattern. Is the CMA using flawed math on cloud as well? That being said, I think they should cut bait and run. I think they should pay the $3 billion fee. And I want to ask everyone in the chat that's upset about this and everyone on the panel, right? What are your COD hours or your World of Warcraft hours or your Candy Crush hours? I think all of us were looking at this deal for what could be or what may be. Will they bring back Hexen, right? Will they bring back StarCraft? Will they bring back Tony Hawk or Crash? And to that, I would say, we can't even get a Killer Instinct. we can't get Banjo-Kazooie.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So what indication do we have that those things actually wouldn't have happened and this was more of a cash cow for them? And everyone that talks about this deal has been saying for the last year, we want it to happen because on the merits it should have happened, but was really so Microsoft could have a stronger position in the market so that they could get more deals done and they could potentially greenlight games. It wasn't actually, apart from Diablo, it wasn't because we were excited about that stuff. We always talked about what's next. Is it Capcom? Is it Sega? Is it Square? So perhaps they flew too close to the sun. And I'm not saying they don't have a good case. I'm just saying they have prostrated themselves in public. And I'm talking about walking out in the public square naked and whipping themselves with a spiked bat. This is what they've been doing for the last year. And
man, the doom and gloom.
No. It's not that. It's not that. We've all speculated that they have been trying to make themselves look bad so that the deal can get done. What I'm saying is that time has passed.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if Sony, feeling confident, finally announces their show with all the stuff they actually had plans that they were lying to the regulators about and all their foreclosure strategies. So I say this is not the end of the world or doom and gloom. Right. How about they go after targets that fill holes in the portfolio?
Yeah, the only problem with that is since if they don't get this, they're getting nothing. You just have to accept that reality. It doesn't matter if it costs $200 million or $2 billion or $20 billion. They're getting nothing. So if they give up on this, it's over.
Well, that's another aspect of it where it's a gamble because you are correct. It seems as though regulators can block things based off markets that they created, and they can just make shit up. Pardon my French, right? So if this is the thing, right? They blocked the Giphy deal, right? They tried to block the Meta Within deal, but Facebook fought that. I see why one would say you have to fight this because then it's lights out. They just don't want you competing because no matter how much facts are in their face, all they're going to see is $100 billion company versus $2 trillion company. And the last thing I'll say before I switch back to listener is, if you've paid attention to the stock price, Activision is down, Microsoft is up, right?
Because
$86
they have a lot of
yeah.
investors in Microsoft that actually want them to focus less on gaming and focus on other things. And that's probably one of the biggest like side stories that I think, like ABK was never for me. I played Call of Duty once every few years. It's never that exciting, but I did, the thing I looked at as somebody who plays on Xbox that wants them to compete is that, this was the point where they could no longer turn back. This is the point where all those, you've heard that, like, Tom Henderson, I know he got a lot of crap for it, but I really do think that has always existed in Microsoft. And it used to be a lot louder. Nadella's kind of drowned it out, the last few years, but there's always been this contingent that says, Microsoft, you're business to business, you're cloud, you're AI. What are you doing in this consumer thing that you're obviously not really good at? And you're diluting yourself. And even today, like some of those people are going, like, you've now set yourself up to make it more difficult to buy OpenAI and all these other things because of what this precedent set. So I think this is actually a lot bigger than just. This is why I'm actually going to agree with Hargy. I think that for Microsoft, this is probably much bigger than just gaming. It's bigger than ABK. It's bigger than gaming, and it's probably even bigger than Microsoft. If the CMA can hold on this and Cat backs them up, they've now. This is the biggest decision from a regulatory body in the last 50 years in terms of impact on the economies, on markets, on mergers and acquisitions. And the CMA is going to, they got their chest out. They right now have made that statement. And I think that Microsoft is, I don't know what their chances are. At this point, I'm not predicting anything. When it comes to politics, I figured
this would be hard to even
you
guess,
can't
honestly.
account for crazy.
You can't predict politics.
Yeah, that Hogue Law actually said that. As a matter of fact, he said that you can't account for crazy. Yeah,
So
that's right.
It's beyond. And the thing is, and I think a lot of people, and I first of all, I apologize jumping in like I did. You know what? Listen, we're going to come to you next. Yeah.
I do want to get Dutch because Dutch has got to get out of
go
here.
ahead.
Let me say one last thing before I get out of here. So I don't know because there's so many $20 billion acquisitions. They bought a bunch of things. They invested $10 billion in OpenAI. It's not as though they can't invest. This was the largest publisher, right? So I don't think it's that sort of end of the world, but they did fly very close to the sun. And it's not that investors want them to get out. It's that investors think, 70 or $68 billion seemed like a deal a year and a half ago. But if you look at what the market has done, they may be paying too much. And so they may just say, listen, what is it possible? And I'm old enough to remember when Microsoft tried to purchase Yahoo for $40 billion. And the idiot shareholders were saying that wasn't enough. And we all know what happened to Yahoo subsequently after.
Yeah.
But Microsoft was saved from making a $40 billion waste of money purchase. So is there a world where they have saved They've been saved from themselves. And a smaller acquisition, which does not move the needle like this, which does not get as many eyeballs and will not trigger any sort of regulatory thresholds, perhaps that's the way to go. Sega. That's it. Bye, guys.
Sega is definitely above the threshold.
Take it easy. Good hearing from you.
All right, listen, Dutch. I want to read something because everyone has made a lot of points regarding the cloud thing, which is obviously why they blocked it. Now, this update comes to us from PostUp. It's PostUp_SOG on Twitter. Follow this man. Go to his channel. He just crossed 1,700 subscribers. I'd love to see the guy hit 2K. Well deserved. His content is phenomenal. He's talking about an analyst named Joost Joost van Drinnen, who lectures at New York University's Stein Business School. And he said several things. that the CMA was making an apples to oranges comparison between Microsoft's Game Pass Cloud offering and those of Amazon, Sony, Nvidia, and Nvidia Corp and others. And this is what he also said, Dutch, which is pretty interesting, and it falls right in line with everyone that has already talked this evening. He says this: I think they're rather misinformed on what the cloud gaming market is. They're conflating cloud gaming with the revenue model. Then they're looking at it as a distinct technology and a market in another sense. I don't think that they can compare the way Microsoft uses cloud gaming to the way Amazon uses it for Luna. He goes on to say the market share is driven by the popularity of Game Pass, not the popularity of cloud gaming within gamers. I mean, tremendous points. Mr. Drunnen, who he lectures at University's Stern Business School here in New York. What are your hot takes on what Kay Asante had to say? Mother, one bad mother, and of course, who stayed home from school and is now on the podcast. Everborn Saga. What are your takes on this? Because to me, it seems very weak sauce.
Yeah, there's a lot. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack with it. For me, primarily, there's multiple things, and I'm going to comment on several things that I keep seeing on Twitter first and foremost, and likely we'll see in the chat. I haven't got the chat open tonight, but likely we'll see in the chat as well as regarding the Microsoft. Why don't you just ignore the UK and just block it out entirely and just close the deal and just get rid of divest the UK side? Well, that's never going to happen. It's the second largest market that Microsoft operate in. It's not going to happen. Secondly, you're not going to divest that market anyway because that would be logistically, physically impossible. You would have to completely somehow segment a whole fortune of games away from that market and potentially attempt to try and operate that way. You're also going to have to reverse the technology that is capable for operating cloud gaming within the UK and prevent its use there. It's not just a case of blocking the deal for the sake of blocking a certain segment off. You would have to do a lot of work in the background in order to reverse what is already there to segment a certain market away from it. And that isn't then assisting with competition, that's preventing competition. So it kind of goes against what they're attempting to do, which is provide that competition in the market. In terms of the cloud gaming segment, the point that they kind of stipulated there with Microsoft having the host advantage and other consumers not being able to compete, I think they're slightly conflating the fact that they're going on the basis that each person has to have their own cloud infrastructure in order to compete, and that is not true. They can, without doubt, use any of the other two largest cloud infrastructures in the world, AWS being the first largest, that's Amazon Web Services, which is the largest cloud infrastructure in order to get a cloud gaming segment up and running. They can use Google, which has a proven track record of being probably the most stable and, in terms of picture quality and performance, the best, even over Microsoft's cloud gaming segment. It's a better technical advancement than Microsoft has. So there is no requirement from either Sony or Nintendo to use their own cloud infrastructure in order to get into the cloud gaming market. That has nothing to do with that segment. And the fact that they're associating the X Cloud or the gaming portion of that with Azure and saying, okay, Nintendo and Sony don't have the infrastructure, so they can't compete. They don't need to have their own infrastructure to compete, is the point. Microsoft know that, and the regulators clearly don't know that. The regulators clearly seem to think that any other competitor has to have their own infrastructure in order to compete in cloud gaming. That isn't true. That is factually not true.
Correct.
They can use any other cloud infrastructure in order to compete. We already know that Sony have a deal with Microsoft to use Azure that they've chosen not to continue with or not to do anything with over the terms that they've already had this agreement in place. So at any point, Sony, and especially we know that the likes of Amazon and Google are against the deal. Sony could quite easily go to Amazon or Google, sign an agreement to use their infrastructure, and get a gaming cloud segment up and running. And probably relatively quickly if you're using the exact same infrastructure that Stadia used. Pretty quick.
which
That's
is
already
Google. Yes.
tested. It's proof tested. So you know it
And
works.
it's already on the Linux platform, which is what PlayStation uses already anyway. So
Exactly.
Stadia is your best bet. Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly. So on that front, there's a flaw in the argument there in terms of regulators. I think they're attaching Azure as a whole in Microsoft's use of Azure worldwide too much to gaming, and not kind of the market as a whole, the gaming market specifically, where you don't need to have your own infrastructure in order to get into cloud gaming. You can use any other infrastructure available on the market in order to do that. So you don't have to build your infrastructure to get involved, which is where you see the likes of Boostroid, etc., get involved. Like they have cloud gaming available, like NVIDIA. They have cloud gaming available. They don't use their own cloud infrastructure. They use others' cloud infrastructure in order to get their services up and running, which is what it is. Yes, one point I will agree. It would be financially impossible for either Sony or Nintendo in order to get the actual cloud infrastructure from scratch built in a time frame that would allow them to keep up. But this isn't about Microsoft's Azure in the worldwide segment. This is strictly about the gaming segment. There's a Santi mentioned earlier, I think it might have been Hargeet. In terms of the or it could have been Everborn actually. In terms of the actual association between Game Pass subscribers and the amount of Game Pass users that use cloud, that is something that they clearly haven't stipulated there, because they're just going on the assumption that all 30 million plus Game Pass subscribers use cloud gaming. But that's an assumption. And
that's definitely not true either. Yeah.
A lot of what this is, that they're kind of blocking the deal on, is based on an assumption of something or where a market could be in 10 to 15 years, not where it is and where it likely will be based on facts. We don't know. Like, there is absolutely zero way of anybody knowing whether or not consoles will still be around in 20 years' time. Whether or not the cloud, not even just cloud infrastructure, but whether or not the actual networks available for cloud infrastructure to thrive will have caught up to the point where countries worldwide will be on 1 gigabit Ethernet, 1 gigabit fiber as a standard, and everyone will be on 6G networks, because 5G currently it's good. But is it capable of actually running a really capable cloud streaming gaming platform? Not really.
No,
you tend to find the
not
vast majority of the time you have to be on Wi-Fi to really use cloud gaming. You do. And there's no matter, you can be in the best place for 5G streaming you want, but there's always going to be artifacting. There's going to be some kind of lagging issues. There's going to be some issues there. The only way to overcome that is that the actual infrastructure worldwide of internet is severely increased, is improved beyond measure, and that's going to take much longer than 10, 20 years to do that. It's going to be much longer because it's going to require heavy investment by governments worldwide in order to do that. So that's going to be taking far too long to do. So it's based on theoreticals. Luke's going to obviously get into that a little bit more on the in-depth side of the theoretical approach that the CMA have went into. On their thoughts about cloud gaming, etc., because of course that's an entirely different thing on whether or not that would actually stand up as an argument if it was taken where it looks like it is going to CAT. Will at least they're going to lodge that appeal to take it to CAT. Whether or not it gets granted or not is another thing. But it's based on heavy theoreticals on where this market might be. And again, it's it's just I just find a lot of the arguments a little bit strange. And in the way that they've presented them, I don't understand where they've come to some of their conclusions, or their thoughts behind it, and this is why a lot of the, including Wall Street, seem to be a little bit baffled by the decision, because they're not sure how they've come to the conclusions based on what they've said, and what they've stipulated. So yeah, it's going to be a long drawn out procedure.
Yep.
Personally, on my channel, we're still going to get the EU's decisions momentarily. That's going to come in within the next couple of weeks. We're still going to get the FTC battle, which we know is going to drag on for months. So it's far from being concluded or not concluded. At this point, I am thankful there's what is now going to be a little bit of break in proceedings, because this isn't going to close anytime soon.
No.
It's going to be 24, 25 earliest, which is unfortunate for us, but it's kind of fortunate in another circumstance, which means we can actually get on to talking about other things whilst this steamrolls in the background. But it's a bit baffling. I think the FTC are probably at this point now going to use the same argument going forward in order to kind of argue this case, because they will kind of look at this now and say, okay, that's an ammunition we can go down. This is how we can use it to kind of get it blocked on our end as well, aside from this thing. So this is what we'll battle it on. So now we've got ammunition from the CMA as to what they're doing. They're going to wait for the EU, and then they're going to use if the EU opt the same. I think, and this is another thing I'll say, if at this point, in a couple of weeks' time, when the EU come to their decision that they're going to also do that, I agree with absolutely everybody on this panel. Walk away, step back, invest that 70 billion into marketing where you need to spend heavily, invest it into localization, which you need to spend heavily on, and then reinvest on the studios you already have, of which 32
or
of
go
them,
get some of the ones that you're working with. Like, there's something to be said about bringing in certain Affinity and IO Interactive and
but it's not
Avalanche.
even just that. It's they have 32 studios, of which we're only just beginning to see any of those come to fruition this year.
Yeah.
And even then, Redfall's already had its issues. It's people crying out for its delay because it can't even do its 60 frames a second on a first-person shooter. And then you've got Starfield, which has had its large delay. Forza Motorsport's been pushed back from its early spring release to God knows when this year. Like, you need to reinvest whatever it is internally, focus in-house. Like you say, they've taken their eyes off the ball, which is I personally think they've done in recent months. They've focused far too heavily on this transaction and not heavily enough on what is actually right in front of them, which is the current 32 studios they have, to make sure that they are hitting it out of the park. They cannot afford to have another year like they had last year at all, because the entire generation will completely get away from them. If they do it this year, the generation's over. If they cannot get out to grips with things now, the generation is done for them. Done. When you're posting negative results and your competition's posting 400% positive results, you need to get a grip of it quickly. And I think they've taken their eyes off the ball and they need to refocus. That's my thoughts on the matter.
I mean, there's strong points, Dutch. I appreciate you being a part of the show. I know you got to get on out of here, brother. Thanks again for popping in, giving us your hot take and your honest hot take, dude. Obviously, before we don't need to sell your brand because it's quite popular. But talk about, let people know if they missed the indie event live last Saturday, where they can go check that out.
Yeah, definitely, of course. So the Community Indie Showcase, the third annual one, is on my channel, The Wondering Dutch, of course, with the awesome Mr. Boomstick, Pong Soul, Keosante, Everborn Saga, Steel Rain, Duncan Voices, Boxing Burger, to name a few. Myself, Aaron Greenberg stepped in. We had, of course, Delilah Studios, who did as we all know, Battletoads, and now doing Disney Illusion Land. We had, of course, Hypercharge and Box on there. We had 85 plus games. It was just over 2.5 hours in length. And games from absolutely every platform you can imagine. Some absolute bangers on there. And we're talking, you cannot differentiate between what you would probably class as AAA to
Versus
small
indie.
indie studios.
Yeah.
Like there's some what indies are doing.
That Neo Berlin had me like, oh my god, I have never seen anything like it. Oh man.
Yeah, it was kind of like Max Payne. It was it was looking really good. But there's some fantastic titles on there, some great choices, and again we have another showcase on the 23rd of September, so you can book it in now. 23rd of September. I'll drop some names here now of who we've got for the second showcase, so I can kind of give you a first glimpse. ACG will be taking part in the next one.
Nice, dude. Awesome.
We'll have Lord Cognito on the next one.
Excellent.
Mr. Bad Bit, of course, will be on the next one.
Good old Joe, coming around.
Among many others. Yes, there's a couple of names that are already definitely confirmed for the next one, and a lot of big names in the works as well. So I hope you all enjoy it if you haven't watched it already, and for those who have, thank you for the support.
All right, brother.
Have an awesome night, chaps. And I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of you in the chat.
Thanks, dude. All right, brother. We'll talk soon. Let me wait for him to go, and when he's gone, we'll switch it over. There you go. So everyone's here. Okay, so listen, Pong. I want to get your hot take on this, brother, but I do got to catch up on the super chats, and my God, there's been a lot of them.
Yeah, there have.
The first one of the day comes the way of 9876. They drop a $5 super chat and says, just ban all third-party exclusives. Then Sony can't be allowed to get away with this. It's time for Xbox to stop playing nice. Drawn TJ drops a $5 super chat and says, pull out of the UK. The CMA pulled out of wow. I'm not going to say what he said. But yes, don't. I will say this: they can't. They just can't. And I think the CMA might know that. I mean, I will say that there is going to be lessening investment by Microsoft and potentially Activision Blizzard King in that region of the world, because this is disappointing for sure. Brett Bingham, who's been a channel member for 6 months, drops a $5 super chat and says, the CMA's ruling essentially says it's not okay for MS to buy devs as a possible future market leader. It's not actual market leaders. SIE over there, he said market leaders there are Sony Interactive Entertainment, Apple, and Google. Shaking my head. Yeah. Mike in the chat drops a very generous $11 super chat and says the CMA was very quick to side with Sony, yet ignores the entire industry that supports this deal. It's clear that there's an agenda with these regulators. I would not be surprised if the FTC had influence, and it's been suggested by our own Congress, which is scary. Brett Bingham drops an additional $5 super chat and says, don't blame Microsoft that Google didn't invest and choose Donnie D 2.0, Phil Harrison, the worst gaming executive of all time. Yeah, every time, wherever that guy goes, it's he brings the unlucky charms with him.
The Grim Reaper of gaming.
Yeah, he's definitely not a lucky charm. I will tell you that. Highlander 001 drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, what the CMA did will make high-tech companies think twice about doing business in the UK. I'm a Game Pass subscriber. I have 8 months left as a customer. I need a reason to resub. We need games. I mean, I there's a lot of games, but I know what you're talking about. We got to start seeing the first party bangers, folks. I'm sorry, it's time. I get nobody wants broken games, and like I said, I'm gonna play the hell out of Redfall. If I'm bothered by the 30 frames, then I will stop playing and go back to Jedi Survivor or Dead Island 2 or finish up Ghostwire Tokyo. I have so many games, I don't even have enough hands and eyes to play, so I'll figure it out. But listen, it's the first big one. Hopefully we're not bothered by the 30 frames. It releases next week. I'm looking forward to it. That's all I can say about that. Okay, so that was Heat. Tom from Toonami Just a very generous $5 super chat and says, if this means another 8 months plus of no real news for Xbox, I'd rather they just drop the deal at this point and start using Sony's playbook with Microsoft's money. And you know what? That's starting to be the sentiment of many people. Nobody wants another year of this. I listen, as a podcaster who does this 5 days a week, I love talking about gaming as a whole, but I want to get back to talking about games and not ABK. And unfortunately, we're talking about it today. It sucks. What happened today sucks. There's no way to put it. Everborn Saga dropped a $5 super chat and says, "Sorry for the sick day, gents. Had to take the day off from work as well. That said, we should all focus on the positive. Microsoft is free to go after Sega now." I knew there was going to be a Sega comment there. Nathaniel Sullivan drops a very generous $5 super chat. Nathaniel, welcome to the show, brother. He says this: So what is the working relationship with ABK and Sony like after this? I can't imagine the retribution of a kind coming from Xbox and ABK. Yeah, there's burned bridges. There's no doubt about it. We have Sanchez MTZ Gaming drops a very generous $5 super chat. And he says, GFN dominates cloud gaming. CMA should be concerned about them, not Xbox. I don't even know who GFN is.
GeForce Now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Thank you. Sotnist drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, we want affordable, accessible games. He believes this move is anti-consumer. Oh, it's definitely anti-consumer. They could care less about. They kept mentioning our UK consumers. They don't care about UK consumers. They just don't. He drops an additional $2 super chat and says, "What cloud competitors are we supposed to wait for?" And that's excellent. That's a great, excellent question. Samurai in the chat. Samurai S drops a very generous $20 super chat, and he says this showcase will be better than E3 2018. I certainly hope so, and they need it. After today's very disappointing news, I kind of want to see a Sony-esque Year of Dreams kind of show for Xbox. I think they need to tell us that, listen, yes, we're going to fight the good fight, but you gamers, don't worry about this ABK thing. Here are these games for your platform that you love. Boom. Slap me across the face with it. It's fine. Pause. But you know what? Do it. I'll take it. Captain Chats drops a very generous £5 super chat and says, as a Brit, I can tell you our government is shady as F. It does not surprise me or my fellow countrymen that the CMA has spun it this way. The way that they have. Yeah, that's very disappointing. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 drops. It says MS tried drops a $2 super chat and says MS tried to be nice. It's time to fight dirty. I've been saying that for a while. Brett Bingham drops an additional $2 super chat and says smash the like button. Thank you so much for that, Brett. Definitely appreciate it. Mike Clark drops a $2 super chat, an additional $2 super chat, and says Sega Capcom wishful thinking. A Capcom would be ridiculous. Voidlock drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, can ABK sell everything to Xbox separately? I mean, if they do a fire sale, it's I don't know how that works.
Wouldn't work that way.
It would. I don't know. I don't think that would work like that. I don't know. Maybe they go after King separately, and that's a better deal. I don't...
One department feeds another department, which feeds another department. They can't stand on their own at this point,
Yeah. Eric the Red agrees with me. Drops a $2 super chat and says, "Can Microsoft pull out but still walk away with King?" Yeah, see, that's the problem. King makes so much money that is used to fund Call of Duty because Activision can't stand on their own. The same way, if you pulled Blizzard away from Activision, Activision would be a peg leg. They wouldn't be able to walk because it's Blizzard money and King money that ultimately paved the way for Activision to live. So I think Casante is completely right. Dave Ramos drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Brad Sams, not Brad Smith, by the way, suggested today that if the merger passes in both the EU and the FTC. Microsoft will proceed and get creative with the UK hashtag sharing. I mean, the EU and the UK, they really don't get along. I don't know if they don't get along enough for one to say yes and the other to say no. We'll ask Luke that when we get to him in a second. I don't know. Dave Ramos drops an additional $5 super chat and says, "Can we zoom in on cloud business models Microsoft is supporting versus is not? What cloud models is CMA looking for? Do they even exist?" I have no idea, Dave. I mean, first of all, thanks so much for the additional super chat, but I have no idea. Review Scientology USA drops a $5 super chat and says Microsoft should invest money into bringing in veteran devs and build studios from the ground up and buy newly founded studios that are compromised of veteran devs. Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. Like Sony did with Jade Raymond's new studio. I think that was a great pickup because I do like Jade Raymond a lot. I think she has incredible vision and she is going to deliver for Sony. But Pong So, let's talk about it, brother. Let's get your hot take.
Where to begin, huh? This is a big one. Everybody's had great points already, obviously, and I can't wait to get Luke's points in here as somebody who has dealt with these individuals himself. Obviously disappointed, but I couldn't do anything but kind of chuckle, actually, for myself this morning, thinking about how long we've talked about this, how long this has gone on, all the speculation, all the rumors and the sources, and obviously all the very highly paid analysts and investor groups with their remarks. And we wind up today with this, that the CMA is going to obviously block it based upon a very small, at this point, cloud market based upon speculation themselves, which is crazy. Like we sit here and speculate in speculation town. It's rainbows and sunshine and unicorns, and the CMA sees nothing but doom and gloom that Microsoft is going to take over this non-existent cloud market sometime in the future, and nobody else is ever going to have a chance at it. Like this is crazy to me. That's why I had to chuckle, because it's fitting for everything that we've been through. And for everybody out there who's frustrated and sick and tired of hearing about this, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, it's going to continue to go on for all of you. But listen, at the end of the day, like I will always say, big government sucks. And I know Luke, CMA is not government, but they're government adjacent in my eyes. And agendas are all the rage at this point in 2023. And obviously this has taken on a life of its own, and it's definitely, in my opinion, big tech. And even though Microsoft themselves has actually stayed underneath the radar for a very long time, let the Googles, the Alphabets, the Metas all take the spotlight in different ways. Microsoft put themselves back in the spotlight with this deal, and these regulatory bodies obviously saw, at least the big regulatory bodies, obviously worldwide, we've seen a ton of approvals, but the big boys decided to show up and say, we're going to stick it to big tech. Because I think that they're feeling kind of ego hurt and bruised because they've been behind big tech for so long. We've seen things happen where we got a duopoly with Google and Apple at this point in the mobile store space, that I think at this point the regulatory bodies are now going the opposite direction and saying, well, now we're going to speculate on the future. We're never going to allow these things to happen, and we are going to be the ones to control where the business goes. And for me, that's absolutely horrifying. To think that people who know nothing about these industries hold this kind of power without checks and balances, that they can, on a whim, and again, that's my word, I'm just using it because that's how I feel about this, on a whim decide to wake up in the morning and say, nope, we've looked at all the facts. We know the facts are in your favor because the majority of the world, again, very highly paid people, even one Mr. Warren Buffett and his team felt this deal was going to go through. We know everybody thinks that right now, we don't really have a good case, but we're just going to go ahead and block this to prove a point, is scary to me. because again, the people within the industry, and this is a dynamic, growing industry. The video game industry is not consolidated. The video game industry certainly is nowhere near its peak. Again, Strauss Zelnick from Take-Two, I always bring this up in his interview. One of his most recent interviews said 20 more years plus of growth here, that these people can wake up as a group and decide that, no, we know better than you in your own industry. We're going to go ahead and dictate terms to you about how you're going to conduct yourselves in not a actual solidified market, but in one right now that is nowhere's near set, nowhere's near close to being defined. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to tell you how you're going to do business there. I hate that. And again, this is something that I'm going to be the odd man out of this group at this point and say, no, Microsoft has to continue the battle. Microsoft needs to push this all the way as far as they're willing to go. There's going to be a lot of intestinal fortitude tested right now, between the investors, the stock, the shareholders, between the boards of both Microsoft and ABK. There's going to be a lot of intestinal fortitude. How far are we going to take this? Are we willing to go forward with this and fight the good fight? But I think at the end of the day, this deal has such large ramifications. I can hear all the arguments. Again, we can go down the list of deals that Microsoft probably could have made, right? I understand that. We've talked about them, right? We've talked about all the different devs.
Heck, we know for a fact, Pom, that
yes.
there were certain deals put off to the side.
Correct.
That's confirmed. That's not a suggestion.
Correct. And we could talk about those, but I kind of look at this like deep sea fishing. If you've got a record fish on the line, one that's going to put your name in the record books, and you've been battling that thing for 3 hours, 5 hours during the day, you don't think to yourself, man, I could have caught 3 or 4 other pretty good fish by now. And I probably should have cut my line, and I got a couple of hours left of light, and I could probably go get 1 or 2. You don't think that way. And in this instance here, Microsoft took a gigantic risk with this deal. They knew this was going to be a fight. That's why they told us from the beginning that it was going to be, they expected it to last into this summer. So they knew the fight was coming. But sometimes you do have to take those risks. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. But this deal has so many future ramifications for where this industry is going, for where Microsoft and Xbox see the future of video games going. And let's not put on the back burner the future of ABK itself and all the devs there and all the teams there. Let's not try to kid ourselves and think that ABK is the healthiest of companies. They came to Microsoft for a reason with this deal. They wanted to be bought for a deal. The investment, the shareholders agreed to this deal for a reason. And if this deal doesn't go through, there's a lot of questions going to come up. And does the CMA look back if the worst case scenario does happen and ABK collapses upon its own weight at this point, which, again, the snake, the most hated one, Bobby Kotick, has come out and stated was happening, especially in the Call of Duty side of things. If it does collapse and all of a sudden you got thousands of devs out of jobs and there is a fire sale, does the CMA go, oops, our mistake? No, of course not, right? They still go on thinking that they saved some future in the cloud market from some dystopian future of Microsoft owning everything and not allowing in competition. And that's where this goes sideways for me, on top of everything else I just spoke about, is that you can't always look to the future and burn down what's happening right now, the present. You can't do that. That sometimes does not work. And again, for these people to think that they know better than most of the industry, again, reminder, most of the industry had zero to little issues with this deal going through. The people who are in this industry for decades upon decades have built companies to huge, huge market shares, like a Take-Two, like a Strauss Zelnick, all said, no, this is not going to be a problem. And for another group of people that have zero or little knowledge up until this point to come in and say, oh no, you guys don't know what you're talking about. That, again, is a problem to me. And I worry about what, if this deal falls through, if Microsoft backs out, they pay the $3 billion, Microsoft and Xbox are going to be fine. Okay, I'm not the doom and gloom guy. I'm still excited about where Xbox is going. Like Dutch was saying, I know he was saying 32 studios, 23 studios, but they're going to be fine, and we're still going to continue on, and we're going to get some great games. Starfield's coming, all that good stuff. The future's bright. They'll move on. But what happens to ABK at the end of the day? And what really happens if another company comes along, a Tencent from China comes along and starts sniffing around because their stock price drops so low? What happens then? Do these regulatory bodies stand up at that point? Or do then they become concerned with the potential loss of the company itself, ABK, and what happens to those people in there? And again, my final point to all of this is the reason why, if I'm Microsoft, I continue forward to this on top of what I said before. You've come this far, you keep going, you don't let this precedent be set without a fight. Okay. And again, in the US, we have different checks and balances systems. They can beat the FTC. The FTC has zero case here because we do have checks and balances here, but you still need to put up the fight over there. Microsoft sees where the industry is going. There's been a lot of talk recently, once again, because of a new article that came out about the October paperwork from the CMA that brought up, what Microsoft claims Sony was doing with exclusivity deals and excluding companies from directly working with Xbox. You can put your games everywhere else, but you can't put any of these games that we signed this contract to with Xbox ever, even after our timed exclusivity is up.
It's crazy.
If that's true, right? And
Yeah.
we'll assume it's true because I don't think Microsoft is lying, knowing full well the CMA would have access to those documents. But let's just assume it's true. This is what Microsoft has seen happen. The old way of doing business in this industry escaped Microsoft. They failed at it. Now, they had some really great moments. They had some successes, but overall, they couldn't get over the hump. They are now trailblazing. And when they look to the future, they understand that this industry being dynamic and always changing and new faces coming into play, old faces going out, deals being cut, all of this kind of stuff. With a service like Game Pass, you can't rely on third parties as part of the problem we've seen with Sony. You can't rely on third parties to always be there for you, to always be supplying you, no matter how much money you have, no matter how much pull you have. You can't do that. You have to be insulated. And I've said this for years now. Microsoft, I said, needed 30 plus studios at the end of the day because they need to insulate themselves from the rest of the industry. So no matter what anybody else decides, the Square Enixes of the world, whatever the case may be, no matter what else happens on the outside, they will always have content for Game Pass. And they will always have enough studios to produce whatever game they need in that moment if a third-party deal can't be cut. And I think that that's what they're trying to get to with this ABK deal. Yes, PC was important, obviously, huge. Mobile was their next big battle. I said that from the beginning, and that's a whole separate conversation with what the CMA said about the mobile side of things. But that was all. This was the trifecta. They had the three biggest needs all in one company, and it was going to really insulate themselves from the rest of the industry. So no matter what happened on the outside, Xbox was going to be good to go. Not saying that they're still not in a good spot right now with 23, but at the end of the day, for a subscription service like Game Pass, when you're thinking about 2 billion, 3 billion people, you've got to have a lot more than even 23. That's why they're not done yet. So that's my final point. Appreciate again, everybody's comments have been fantastic. Just a disappointing day. Until they wave the white flag, though, it's not over. They're going to turn over every stone, I believe, until they finally decide one way or the other with this and go forward, either fighting or move on. So, but I think we got a lot more to talk about coming up in the coming months, maybe next year. But we'll see where they go from here. I do hope that we do get back to a little bit of business as usual.
Yeah, games, and more games.
Games, more games. Microsoft has to get back to that. I hope that they do now at this point, now that they've gone through all this, that they can finally sit back and turn to the attorneys and go, okay, we're opening up for business now. We are going to start talking about the things that we need to talk about for our customers. We're going to get back to the business
for the platform.
You guys deal with all that. That's you. We played your game for a year and a half. Now we got to get back to some actual games. So hopefully that's the case.
I agree. Listen, Mag, we're gonna get you in a hot second because I know you got to get on out of here. Hargeet, I apologize that we haven't gotten to Mother One and Luke. It's just when you have these big shows, it's very hard to try and to get everyone to give their points. But Hargeet, I have something in front of me that post up added to this conversation. It's paragraph 83, and this is where you kind of scratch your head about what is the CMA actually saying, specifically in mobile. In relation to Microsoft's expanding into mobile gaming, listen to this, Hargeet. The chances of Microsoft succeeding seemed low in circumstance where the two largest mobile OS companies in Google's Android and Apple's iOS either currently prohibit rival mobile gaming app stores or impose strict limits on their ability to monetize content in any event. There seem to be other less anti-competitive ways through which Microsoft could reasonably attempt to enter this market, such as by licensing mobile gaming content from publishers. This is crazy. Like, wow.
Yeah. Well, especially since the EU passed the Digital Markets Act, something like that,
Yes.
which requires those two platforms to open up to other stores. And Microsoft kind of has that ability. They have a lot of, software. They're kind of the biggest software maker in the world. And giving them the ability to potentially have a good gaming store is something that might be useful. But hey, whatever. That whole thing is just crazy. But the whole thing is kind of interesting. Cloud being an issue. First, is cloud even a viable thing? Take Call of Duty and ask how many people are clamoring to play a fast Twitch multiplayer competitive shooter on cloud. And that answer is zero. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody, right? But okay, we should be worried that Call of Duty wouldn't be on other cloud, even though Microsoft just signed agreements with all these people to literally put Activision Blizzard King's entire PC library on their service. But that's not enough. Okay. All right. Is cloud even a viable thing? Microsoft themselves detailed that it's not going anywhere. We even put out the free Fortnite and we didn't see anything. It didn't go anywhere. And that's today. Let me give you a picture of what's really going to happen in the future. Your current Samsung S23 is a 8-core, 3.7 teraflop GPU in a stupid phone. What do you think that's going to be in 10 years? How much power is that? You've got a Series S in your bloody phone, right? What's that going to be in 10 years? And when is it enough? That endpoint device can just play the games natively. There's no reason to have cloud. It's just a stupid gimmick that's going to be around for a few years.
Like 3D TVs, brother.
Your TV has zero. We just heard about the Asus ROG Ally, 8.6 T-flops in a portable device.
Which is only $649, by the way.
8-core, 16 thread.
I didn't hear the price.
512 gigs of SSD, 16 gigs of RAM, right? You got that portable in your bloody hands. Why can't that be in a TV? 10 years from now, that chip is going to be so useless, you're going to be able to get it for $10 on any TV. So what is the problem? Where does cloud make sense? In the UK? Why? Can somebody there not afford to get a console? It's a stupid gimmick. It makes sense in countries that can't afford it. But there you're going to have the problem of there's no infrastructure. It doesn't matter if you have 6G, 80G. It doesn't matter. You need data centers. Nobody's going to invest in data centers unless there's people who are going to spend lots of money on those data centers. And that's just a reality, right?
And so, for the record, real quick, because we want to be accurate here, the ROG Ally has not price been confirmed yet, but it's rumored to start at $700.
Yeah, rumors. It's like $650 and $900, I think, for the high-end model. No. But what I'm trying to get to is still the endpoint itself is going to be able to play games natively. And part of what Microsoft's looking at is mobile, right? That's what they told us. This deal isn't about cloud. They never said that. It's about mobile because they know that's where things are going. They know that your cell phone's going to play Call of Duty at some point, and they need to be there. It's already there with Warzone, right? But they want to get full bore Call of Duty. It will run on a phone at some point. It'll run on a tablet at some point. It'll run natively on your TV at some point. That's where they're trying to go. They need that app store. Why? Because what does the TV run? Android. They want that app store. That's the whole point. That was what they were looking to do. Cloud is a transitory technology that might be useful as a side feature, right? It's beneficial in, hey, I normally play on my console, my TV, my tablet or something, and I can't access it or something like that. I'll use somebody else's and access my account. Okay, fine. Maybe that's useful. I don't know, right? But right now, that's really the only benefit. I can't run on the main TV right now. I'll just run over here on the little tablet for a little while, and then I'll go back to my TV and get my full performance, right? But if you're playing an FPS, forget it. And the games that we're talking about, Overwatch, Call of Duty, who's going to do that? Who's going to play that on a freaking cloud, service? Activision themselves have outright rejected cloud with the same exact, answer. They're like, cloud is not good for us. Eventually, the endpoint devices are going to get powerful enough. We will target those devices. They sent that to the CMA. They sent that to the FTC. They put that out there in writing. This is what we expect, right? We are not going to do cloud. And they're like, no. You will be forced to do cloud because the market will say so. No, they're not going to do it because it won't benefit their customer. Nobody wants to play it that way, right? It's just not going to work. You need to have local performance, just the way it is, right? It's an FPS. And I don't know if they don't understand that. Fair enough, right? That's fine. That's explain it to them. And I don't know how much back and forth they had with Microsoft, because some of this just seems like they just miscommunicated a bit, right? Near the end. And I think Microsoft spent a lot of time getting through the console SLC and maybe not enough time on getting through the cloud SLC, right? Which is, thankfully they got rid of the subscription SLC, because that was a thing too, right? Game Pass, right? But they got rid of that. Now they went to this cloud thing. And perhaps they just didn't spend enough time explaining what this is. But to be fair, there's a lot of information in there that does detail out how the cloud stuff works. They just kind of figured this is going to be something that's going to like exponentially expand and replace what gaming is. And it's like, no, it's not really what's going to happen. You have to look at the realities of what, like, they could have polled those same PlayStation players and asked, would you play this in the cloud? And how many would have said, "Oh yeah, I would love to"? No, they would all say no.
They would be like, "Hell no! Are you kidding me?
Way. Are you?
No way! Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen."
Yeah.
Right. So now, where do they go from this? So like the idea that they should abandon it. No, the point of this again is mobile and PC. You can't really beat King and Blizzard, so they can't abandon it. They have to do it. And this isn't a Xbox thing. You got to remember, this is a Satya Nadella thing, because he sees where the market is going and he wants to be there. Right. This helps their cloud data centers. It helps their platform expand into mobile, right? So they've been trying to get into that mobile space. Remember the whole Nokia thing, all that, and that failed miserably. And that was because they didn't have apps. What do they get when they have a store? They get apps.
Yes, indeed.
That's what they're looking for. That's what they want, right? So that's been the whole thing. The more stuff they can bring to the table to make their store more appealing, that's what they're going to do, right? The mobile space, that's what they need, is content. They don't have it right now. Maybe you could say Minecraft, but they don't really have it right now. That's what they're trying to get into, right? You get King, you get a whole bunch of things, plus Call of Duty. It's a big deal. You get Diablo Immortal, which people panned it when it was announced, but it's doing pretty well. It is what it is, right? So you got to look at where they are and what they're looking for, and that's a big deal for them. That's why they, Satya Nadella is like, yeah, I'll plop down $70 billion to buy this, the biggest acquisition in Microsoft's history, right? So they're not walking away. That's not going to happen. Could they do something creative? Yeah. I mean, as they're noting that from their, since they started xCloud, it hasn't really taken. It's been a nice feature every now and then thing, not a like, hey, we have 10 million subscribers that only use cloud. That's not what's happening. So if that's really the case, they could just say, look, in the UK, we at this point will withdraw xCloud because it's just not really a market that's worth it to us, right? I think Dutch brought up, but that takes away competition. But to their point, they don't care. It's not really giving them much. The Game Pass, value proposition is you get the game locally on your PC or on your Xbox. Play it, do whatever you want, right? So I don't know that it necessarily matters. This was a great feature as an add-on. Hey, I'm like on a train and I want to play the same game I was playing, and it'll sync up the save and I can just play. Okay, cool, right? But is that really the end of the world? Nah. Right? For the people that cannot afford a console, you'd have to have a sub service that's really cheap. Like it would have to be a couple of bucks a month, which is why they were looking at that ad supported, option, right? And then you'd have to have the infrastructure for them to be able to use it. And I don't know that that's viable right now. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think ultimately the devices themselves are just going to get so powerful that like 10 years from now, you're going to say, cloud, why would I play cloud? Why wouldn't I just run it on my
right on my phone? Right.
My phone has like, 18 T-flops. Like, why do I care? I've more than enough. So my TV has 30 T-flops. Like, how much more do I need? In most cases, you're going to be fine, right? So you might have a Series Y, whatever the next gen is, and a PS6 that has, I don't know, 60 or 80 T-flops, and that does, path tracing or something. But most people are going to be happy with whatever you get that's available with, Series S is a perfectly fine machine, and it's 4 T-flops, and that's literally the same as a Samsung S23. That's how much power that thing has. A stupid phone has the same power as a Series S, right? And that's where we are right now. I just imagine where that goes 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And those 10-year deals after that, is there a cloud environment? I don't know, right? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But it just seems like a waste to me because you have to be so close to that data center for it to be even remotely viable, because the latency just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
Especially in a game like Call of Duty, which is the point.
With Twitch shooters, I just don't see it. Like, a lot of us have played with Jedi Knight Peter, who plays Halo, loves it, right? And I asked him, hey, you keep complaining about the latency. Did you try xCloud? Because he's in Australia, the data center's in Sydney. Is that much of a distance? Not really. So, hey, why don't you try it? And he's like, I did try it. It sucked. It was way, 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 way worse. I was like, yep. So, I mean, it's just not a thing, right? You're playing a first-person shooter. You need local performance. It's just the way it is. So I don't know that really is an issue in this specific case. Like, had they talked about something like a JRPG or something like that, okay, I could see it. That might possibly a thing, but like they're talking about freaking Overwatch and Call of Duty. I'm like, dude, there's no way. This is not a cloud material. It's just not going to happen, right? And they keep saying that Activision would eventually go there based on what? They've outright said they haven't done it up to now, and they've outright said they're not going to. They would never do it. They would only do it because they'd be part of Microsoft and Phil would do it, right? And as it is, the fun part about this is they just took away Activision Blizzard King games from NVIDIA, from Boosteroid, from Ubisoft, because they just signed those deals saying, whatever we put on PC, you got it, right? And Microsoft's stance is Xbox plus PC for every release, right? So they just took away all the Activision games, and Blizzard has all these PC games. They're all now not going to be on the services. So you're actually making it worse for those services. Funny enough, Boosteroid came out and said, we disagree with this. We were for the deal. We now don't get the games we want. Yeah. This is not good for us. I don't know why you did this. Right. So
it's funny. A 3-bit actually said that in a private DM. He says, they called it anti-competitive, and they just took away all these games from all of these cloud providers.
Like, what?
what happened? I don't understand. Where's the sense in that?
They're basically doing what it was, Pong. You were saying basically they're looking in the future. You can look in the future if it's in a year or two, right? But nobody can tell me that cloud is something that's going to take. I have never heard anybody say, I look forward to getting rid of my console, getting rid of my, my portable device and play on cloud. Some people have said cloud is kind of up to par now. It's not bad. I've used it. But, I still have my Steam Deck. I still have my console, right? And that's cool, right? As a side thing, it's going to be fine. Rogue Ally's coming. And, dude, I'm very interested in that because that's a very powerful portable, right? But it's local power. I get local power. Do everything. I want to play any game, I can play it. Game Pass.
Well, it runs Windows 11, so that's exactly. Already the advantage. It becomes a Game Pass machine.
And that was the other thing they brought up, is they did not like the fact that most of the games are made on PC on Windows. And it's like, well, that's not Microsoft's fault. They won, and that was the predominant platform. And so oddly enough, developers are like, oh, I'm not going to make my game for 40 different platforms because that costs too much. And I'm going to target the ones that exist. And the majority of my gamers are on Windows. Okay, that's a bad thing. So Microsoft, by virtue of the fact that they, happen to win the OS market, suddenly that's a bad thing for Microsoft. So they can't do anything else. They don't even use Windows in their cloud. They use freaking Xboxes. They don't even use Windows in their cloud. And they're happy to license Windows to any cloud provider. They don't care. Absolutely take it, have fun, right? All these other services are up and running on Windows. How? Because Microsoft said, no, you can't have it? No, they said, go ahead. Like, absolutely, go ahead, do it. right? So there's a little bit of too much of a jump to conclusions that are a little odd. Now, could you make those conclusions and say, okay, there's a potential for that? Maybe, right? But again, I don't even think cloud is really going to stick around that much. It's going to be a nice side thing. But this is to me like VR. And I know, Santa, you don't like that statement, but it is like VR in that it's a nice niche.
It's nice to visit, but I wouldn't want to live
side
there.
thing. It's not what everybody's going to do. And, until AR comes along, and Apple, I think, is working on one that makes it more mainstream, until that happens, I just don't, I think VR is going to kind of slide away, and you're going to have AR kind of really take, and because it has more utility than just games, right? It becomes more, your cell phone replacement. That could be a potential, right? But until it has that kind of utility, I just don't see that taking off. And the same thing with cloud. I just don't see it being a thing. It could absolutely be used to expand a game, right? So you could have the cloud, like Microsoft was saying when they started the Xbox One. Hey, we could use cloud to expand what the game is doing. Crackdown 3, we can have physics up in the. That stuff can absolutely happen, right? You can definitely do that kind of thing. But your main core gameplay is going to run local because that's what it needs to be. And especially for first-person shooters, I don't see it. It's going to be local. And with the power that you're getting in these devices, it just doesn't seem. It's not going to stop, right? We're not going to just stop at 3.7. In 5 years, I'd expect that to be 15. It's just the way it's been going. It just keeps up, right? Just look at how we went from like a 30 T-flop, RTX 3080 to what are we up to 80, 100 T-flops on the 40s? It's
4090s,
yeah, it's just nuts. Like, so they just keep expanding massively.
Is that how many flops we got there, Kay Sante? Sorry.
Yeah, it just keeps going, right?
I'll tell you how many holes I have in my wallet. That's a whole different conversation.
Right.
Continue.
But if you went back 15 years, what's the best card? Maybe like in the is it the 9 series, maybe the 980 or 9 whatever. So, and then what is that, like 4 T-flops, 5 T-flops, something like that, right? So that's what we had back then, and now that's in your phone, right? Just think about that, right? 15, that's in your phone, right? So where are we 10, 15 years from now? I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that you have multi-deca teraflops sitting in your pocket on your phone and your TV
or your handheld,
right. So and that's where I think it'll end up. And there's just no point in saying cloud is the burgeoning new thing that's somehow going to replace what we already have. Right. Their thought is that developers will be happy to say, "Oh, we will make games specifically for Boosteroid." Why?
Why they wouldn't do that? Because why box? You see what they ultimately did, in my opinion, Hargeet, is instead of expanding the reach of what the UK could do for their customers, they circled the wagons and made the circles smaller. I think ultimately this is a very, very poor decision, and putting such an
that they went this way.
Yeah,
and I'm really waiting for Luke to tell us if this is something that he's seen before, and if there even is a potential for them to get out of it, and what might be remedies. And I feel like they didn't talk to them. I think they talked to them about the console stuff, and just didn't bother talking about the.
That could be because they were a little shocked. They were very shocked,
and like.
Yeah, so
because there could have been back and forth that they said, okay, wait, you have this problem. Oh, okay, cool. We'll do these things for you. Like, what do you want us to do? We will remedy that. I don't think they went there, right? So I think this is just kind of weird. Like, for a very minor thing that you're like, this is a problem, really? Like, not Game Pass. That's not the problem. Like, I would have thought that would be the problem. If anything, that would be the problem. No, they didn't care about that.
They do mention it, by the way. I think it's the combo.
The multi-game subscription thing, right? But in cloud, in a context of cloud, right?
In the context of cloud, yes.
Yeah. Multiple games in the subscription. But like, I just don't like. This is just kind of interesting.
Well, but with that multi-game subscription stuff, why doesn't somebody throw Luna a deal and call it a day? Because they tried
done that.
They probably would have done that too, right? They tried to do that with Sony. Sony didn't take the deal. There were no other multi-game subscription services of note to give deals to.
Like Microsoft wouldn't do that with Amazon. Like, fine, let's do it. Whatever. We don't care. Let's bring them to the table.
Oh, well.
We'll do it. So now they better at least try to understand where EC is, because if this is the same place they're at, because they basically dropped everything but this, right? So it's like, you better be talking to them and say, hey, wait, hold on. What are you guys on? Like, are you guys thinking the same thing?
Educate.
You need us to do something?
In the next 4 weeks. No, good stuff, Hargeet. I think you're right. I think they have to get over to the EC and they got to educate them and potentially use that education that may change a decision for them to say like, yeah, it was brought to our attention and we're going to approve it. And then they can then turn around and take that and say, hey, listen, CMA, look, we, Cat, this is we educated them. This is they agreed. Maybe the conversation that should have been had didn't. So we'll certainly see.
It's an interesting time. The thing that everybody brought up is this is going to drag on for years.
I know it's sickening already. It honestly is sickening. Yeah, maybe even to hopefully listen. Who knows at this point? But they're in it to win it. Mag, I want to get to you, brother, but before I do, I got to catch up on some super chats that popped in here. The lovely Delilah HD in the chat. Thanks so much for hanging out. She drops a very generous $10 super chat, and she says, love listening to all of the takes on this deal, just showing the show some support. Great work, fellas, per usual. Thank you for the generosity. More importantly, thank you for being here and the kind words. Danny Passion Official drops a $5 super chat and says, since day one, they were ready to block the deal. It was easier to say that Call of Duty wasn't the issue, so no one would think that they are blocking because of Sony. I mean, there's definitely some speculation for that. LeBurn98 drops a very generous $5.50 super chat, and he says, Idis, a UK lawyer on Reset Era, said that Microsoft could consider ring fencing its Xbox UK operations to get the deal through the UK. I'm not even sure what that means, but I will definitely ask Luke. We have I believe it's Indrid Cole drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, can you imagine further on Microsoft setting some deals to the side for ABK? What deals? I figured Asobo and Certain Affinity. What I missed? Yeah, I mean, those are two they should definitely bring into to the house for sure. Angry Hippie. Wow, this is crazy, folks. He drops a $70 super chat and says, we need some good vibes. Add this to the Stalker 2 giveaway. And if you're curious, folks, as to what he means, at the beginning of the year, Mrs. Boomstick and I have pledged to purchase and give away 15 copies of Stalker 2 when it's released to the winner's choice of PC or Xbox. And we are doing that in our small way of supporting the devs who were incredibly affected by the Ukraine Russian war that is still currently ongoing. That entire team had to be displaced. We know several team members that stayed behind actually died in the line of duty. So our way of being able to donate money to that studio, we know that Microsoft keeps 30%. They will get 70% because they're publishing the game. And it's just a small gesture of a small channel to give back to this studio and their families. So yes, we are buying and purchasing at full price, folks. Not waiting for a Steam deal. Literally, the day the game comes out, we're going to buy 15 codes at full price and give them away on a special stream that we're going to do for Stalker 2 when it's released for Xbox. Mag, let's get your hot take on this, brother. I apologize to Luke.
Good.
I apologize to
I'll be quick so we can get Luke on here. So I'll just spit my things real quick. But sorry, go ahead, brother.
No. What is your hot take on this, Mag?
Listen, I'll be very quick because I'm going to say this. I've listened to everybody tonight. It's been incredibly informative, incredibly interesting. I'm going to look at something a little bit different here. And I'm going to say, what my dad has always said, what's happened? You can't change what's happened. Maybe you can. Maybe this can be changed what happened. But if it's not, I'm going to look at it from a way that, let's just say this is done. Okay? Just from that aspect. Now, if you think about this, think about Microsoft moving forward. The deal doesn't go through. This is going to be obviously a litmus test for what's going to happen with the FTC. And of course, we've heard the conspiracies that the FTC was, somehow, pulling the strings of the CMA. Hey, it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's politics at the end of the day, right? So that is a possibility. Now, ignoring all that, let's focus on Xbox. Okay, how does this, the cloud, all the cloud and everything else, it doesn't affect us. Going after King how does this affect the Xbox gamer at the end of the day? It doesn't. it was going to, if it was going to help fund the first party and everything else, right? And then this cloud moving forward is not going to help us. Hargeet said it for a solid 10 minutes about how no one's going to play those kind of games on the cloud. So this doesn't affect us at all. So why don't we drop it and move on and think about the Xbox of the future? I think that the marketing deal, first of all, and I was going to say another thing, what Pong was saying were some incredible points. Okay. And I appreciate everything that he said there, because I had actually said to myself, there's no way this deal, just move on, forget about it. And then Pong said his piece, and I was like, holy crap, he just gave an incredibly compelling reason as to why they should keep fighting. So anyways, we're going to keep it open, but I'm not going to go down that road. What I'm going to say here, Microsoft gets the marketing deal for Call of Duty, and that's going to be for a long period of time, maybe a 10-year deal. Whatever it is, because at the end of the day, this deal falls through. What does Activision Blizzard King get? They get the $3 billion. Yeah. Right. They get that $3 billion up front. That should more than cover it. Okay. So they're going to get that marketing deal moving forward. Now, the other thing is you look at how this affected the entire business world. The stock went up. We saw that. Everborn was talking about it earlier. The stock's gone up. Money's in the coffers. Shareholders feel more confident now than they did before, which is surprising. I thought that there would be a little bit of a dip, but the only dip came on the Activision side, not on the Microsoft side, because I think that the shareholders on the Microsoft side felt more confident with the money in the coffers as opposed to investing into a $70 billion investment. What they're looking at, and this is what they were talking about on CNBC today. I was watching that, and they were talking about how the shareholders are more interested in the integration of AI moving forward, not only with Microsoft software, but also in the gaming division, and see how that moves it forward, that they'd actually speed up the process of bringing out compelling content to users, which of course increases revenue. So this is what they were looking at. But that is going to take an immense amount of time. So what we're going to look at now, let's face the reality, folks. It's 3 years into the generation. Sony won this. Sony's basically going to win this gen again. Okay. They are already pulling ahead by a ton. I don't care if anybody wants to hear that or not. It's the truth. It's 3 years in. The Xbox is not done. I'm not saying they're done, but Sony's not slowing down. It's something we talked about in the first 5 minutes of the show. They're pulling ahead by a lot. Microsoft now has to play catch up yet again, and it may not happen by the end of this generation, because as technology moves forward, the generation could be over in a couple of years. Could be over in 3 years, right? 3 years is not enough time for them to catch up for what Sony's been doing in sales, and of course in third-party deals, and of course revenue. Okay, so that's the other thing. So now we're going to have to keep looking ahead from there, right? And that's the other thing. The other thing is that now let's start looking at a business model of the 360. Start looking at that. It's not a fanboy thing. It's something that they got to do. They got to look at that. They got to look at those. How do we not only work with our first-party studios, which they have a ton, but the thing is, if you look at Sony and Nintendo have less studios than Microsoft does. And they are trouncing them. Why? Because they're cultivating their product in-house, and at the same time, they're also outsourcing product to other people. What did Microsoft do in the 360 era? We got all those amazing, compelling games that came to the Xbox 360. We had the BioShocks of the world. We had the Mass Effects of the world, right? And that wasn't even first-party stuff. Those are games that came to that system because they helped fund those games, because they saw that there was potential for a franchise for the future, right? And this is what they need to do again. So cultivate and work on your first party, get those games out, get them of top quality, and they have to be consistent. Consistency is king, right? They do that. At the same time, start looking at what third parties are doing and what they're interested in, and start investing into what they're doing, and maybe you could get that back, right? That's the other way. And then, of course, at the same time, continue to cultivate your Game Pass. All right, which you could work with a lot of these indie developers, AA developers, AAA, the whole 9 yards. And this is what they could do moving forward. Or, as Pong said, keep fighting the fight. You know what I mean? So they could keep moving it forward. Another thing, quickly, they were talking about how the employees, this is basically a slap to the face to the employees of Activision Blizzard, especially with their spotty history and everything else. Let me tell you something, guys. When it comes to money and it comes to big business, you're an ant. Okay, you're an ant. They don't care about you. They don't care about what you're going through. They want you quiet and out of the way. If you cause a ruckus and they charge somebody with sexual harassment, pay them out, get rid of them, shut them up, get them out of here. Move on. They don't want. I'm like they know me. I'm a senior executive, whatever else. But guess what? To people in Texas, where my head office is, I'm still a number. I'm not a person.
Indeed. Yeah,
I'm a number to them because I don't face them directly, right? So I'm just a number on a piece of paper to these people. The same thing here. They don't care about that. Anyways, last thing I wanted to say, or two last things I was going to say very quickly before we pass it off to Luke, is the big Phantom Menace here, okay? The Emperor Palpatine in the room we got to talk about is Google.
Yeah.
I think Google had more hands in this and more influence on what happened today than anybody else. I think Google has it out for Microsoft, obviously, for obvious reasons, but I think Google was behind this. That's my personal feeling. Just a gut feeling. I may be right, maybe wrong. Who the hell knows?
So you're saying Phil Harrison is the Emperor again?
Well, basically, yeah, except not as proficient as Palpatine. But anyways, pretty damn close. But here's the thing. The last thing I was going to say, this does hurt the UK in one respect only, is that you see the smear campaign started today. I can't remember if it was Microsoft or if it was Lulu there, or someone said it.
Yeah,
someone
she said
the UK is closed for business.
Yeah,
yes.
closed for business. Yeah.
Was it her?
It was Lulu.
So there are influencers out there. The smear campaign is starting. The UK is closed for business. It makes it sound like no one's going to want to go and invest there, because what were they planning on doing? They had the full intentions of becoming a beacon of light for the tech world. Okay, or become a tech hub for basically the UK and all of Europe, that they could start building up what they started in Silicon Valley all those years ago, right? And now with a smear campaign like that going around, or at least with the...
No one's going to want to invest, Mag.
No one's going to want to invest. And that's a problem, because they're trying to build that up over there so that they can rival what's going on in North America and, of course, in the Asian country, Far East Asian countries. Anyway, so there's that. So they're looking at that, and that's going to hurt them as well, at least in the interim. We'll see what's going to happen in the long term. But either way, I'm interested to see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen, really. But at the same time, guys, we got a lot of great games to play. We got a lot of great things to do. We can move on from this for now, and then just, you know what I mean? And we'll see where the future takes us. But in any case, so far this year, they've already released 7 games that are 85 Metacritic and above. Why don't we pick up those controllers, start playing, start having fun, start having some conversation, and moving on from there?
No, good stuff, Mac. Tomorrow, you're going to be sitting down with me, and you know what? We're going to talk about the human element that no one has mentioned in this whole thing. What happens to the employees? You made a small mention of it. We're going to get into particulars.
We'll get into it tomorrow,
and we're also going to be talking about the new Star Wars game. My God,
right.
It's getting 10s. Like I said, Xbox era gave it a 9.4 out of 10. I'm all in. I cannot wait to play it. Cal Kestis. I can't wait for him to come to live action. That kid is a great actor. And Luke. Not this Luke, another Luke. Luke Lore showed his collector's edition that came with the lightsaber. I missed that. I can't believe I missed a freaking lightsaber collector's edition for Star Wars. I'm a fraud, folks. But the Luke that we have on the panel, I'm so sorry, Luke, it took this long to get to you. Okay, let me fix the branding here. Hold on just a second. Okay, Luke, let's, you came on the show at 2 different occasions. The first was when we thought the CMA was going to block it for Sony, and how Microsoft would have to go to CAT, the tribunal, to get it done. And then we had you back on when it appeared that the CMA had reversed their decision and they moved Sony off the board, and Sony was rumored to be going to CAT if this deal was passed. Now we're back at it again, that the deal has been blocked. We had 950 people here. We missed a 1K by a smidge again. It's okay, folks. We'll eventually get there. Luke, what kind of a hill is Microsoft ice skating up to try and get this deal done in the UK?
A very big one, a very, very big one. One that's effectively, I suppose, that's at least to my knowledge, never been done before. So yeah, I mean, Microsoft have to go to the Competition Appeals Tribunal. Everybody knows this. The way that they work is that they review decisions of the CMA for mergers, other competition decisions as well, but particular mergers. And the way that they review is on a judicial review standard, which effectively means they review the CMA's cases on, their merger decisions on three grounds. One is illegality, one is procedural impropriety or procedural error, effectively, and the other is irrationality. And those judicial review grounds have been around for a long time in the UK. They're baked into case law. They're very known when it comes to public authorities. But the one thing that about them is it's really, really, really hard to prove any of them, particularly irrationality. Things like illegality is pretty easy, right? If a authority does something that it's in contravention of law, it's usually pretty easy to spot that. Likewise, a procedural error, a little bit harder, but the threshold is still not hugely high, but it's still quite difficult. Irrationality is really, really hard. You effectively have to show that a decision is, or a way of coming to a decision is so unreasonable that no reasonable decision maker in the same position would come to the same decision. And the issue is, I guess, for Microsoft, and it was the same even if Sony were going to do this, but so the same principle applies. But if Microsoft want to do this, which clearly they do, they're within their rights, within law to do. They want to push it. They've got the financial strength to be able to push this as well if they want, as in take it to CAT. But if they want to do that, then Microsoft have to get comfortable about the idea of what success for them looks like, because success for them, the ultimate thing that Microsoft want to do is they want to get this back so that the CMA will push through the merger, right? Whether that's with some behavioural remedy or with none at all. Certainly not with anything structural. But success in an appeal to CAT for a CMA merger decision often doesn't mean that. It means trying to get CAT to recognise that the CMA has done one of those three points that I've just mentioned, or maybe multiple of them. But CAT don't do what's called a de novo analysis of the CMA's decision. In other words, they don't re-review the merger, right? That's not what CAT do. All they do is say, yes, you may have, maybe the CMA's done this thing wrong. Decision goes back to the CMA. CAT says, correct your error, correct whatever it is you've done wrong, and then issue an updated report. It's never happened that. So it has happened that a particular merger has gone to CAT, and CAT have found that the CMA have done something some procedural error, for example, or some irrationality. That's happened before. It's never happened that decision has then gone back to CAT and CAT have changed their mind about the decision, right? So the hurdle that Microsoft have to clear with this is as high as it possibly can be, effectively. So do I see them succeeding? Probably not, to be honest. If I was acting for Microsoft, I'd say, counsel for Microsoft, the lawyers for Microsoft at this point will just be saying, look, they'll do what I've just done, albeit in a big memo, and in more candid conversations, and say, look, here's your likelihood of success. We can make these arguments. Here are some that we think we could make that we'll try and push for. But you have to really confront the idea of what is success in this regard, and what do you want at the end of it. And if you're looking for something at the end of it, like the CMA reversing a decision, history shows that has never been done. So you need to check your expectations about that. Now, I don't think that's going to deter Microsoft at all. I think they'll do it. But they're in a incredibly difficult position, basically. So that's kind of the process and where they're at. It's going to be really hard.
My question to you is how, and I'm sure people are going to be asking this in the chat and on the panel, for how close do you think the EU Commission is watching this? And is there a chance? Is there some chance? Because obviously, since Brexit, there are two different entities. Now, depending on who you talk to, who politically you listen to, there is not the greatest of blood between them. They have their own ideologies for the own regions of and there's still a lot of bad blood with Brexit as a whole. Like, it's still a real nasty talking point for a lot of people in in that world, in that region of the world, for politics. We know a lot of us have suggested here that, and Hargeet made some amazing points about maybe there wasn't enough communication between Microsoft and the CMA to educate them on what cloud actually meant. And if that in fact is the case, and they really dug their heels into the console and forgot about cloud, well, then that's on Microsoft. They failed there. Is there a potential or a possibility that you see, Luke, because you do this? This is what your job is. You have worked for and against the CMA. Is there a potential for Microsoft to get ahead of this? Because they seemed a little bamboozled with the cloud thing. So again, maybe they didn't have a conversation. Do they educate the EU in cloud the same way they educated them on the console aspect, and that somehow the EU's decision would be different than the CMA's?
It's possible. I maybe say probable that the EU's decision will be different. I can't say for sure, and
right.
I mean, the difficulty is nobody really can say for sure because
we didn't see this coming. So
we're not in the heads of regulators, and we don't have access to the kind of information that they're getting. So, and even if you're a lawyer for any one of these parties, you can only make educated guesses about where you think a regulator will go. What I will say is that I think if you look, and I've not read all of the CMA report yet, but the CMA report is over 400 pages.
It's ridiculously long.
Yeah, it's huge. It's one of the biggest I've ever seen, and there are a litany of internal documents that are referred to, and conversations, etc. Obviously, all redacted because they're confidential. But I think the CMA, based on what I've read so far, were educated about this by Microsoft, as in Microsoft had significant input about cloud and cloud gaming. But nonetheless, the decision that they came to was not favorable to Microsoft. And I think the EU may take exactly the same information, and the EU Commission may arrive at a different conclusion, but it's really difficult to know because, I mean, we've heard murmurings for a while that the Commission are perhaps more favourable to the deal in general, and particularly they're more favourable, so the rumour goes, to behavioural remedies. So they may hold exactly the same concerns as the CMA, except they may be quite satisfied to let this go with some behavioural remedy in place or remedies in place. So it's difficult. I mean, I think it's next month that the EU decision will come out, but
23rd, I
something
think?
like
Something
that.
like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
But the problem is, I guess, that even if the EU, diverge from the CMA's decision, and let's say they favour it and they're happy for it to go through with behavioural remedies, the CMA, what the CMA have done today is really as close to a bit of a death knell for this deal as you can get. It's kind of on the cusp of being that. So I think it's going to be really difficult, irrespective of the fact, whether the EU agree with the CMA or come to a more favourable decision for Microsoft.
Good stuff, man. I apologize, Luke, for having you here and not getting to you soon enough. Again, it's just I try to be fair, and when a panel this big, sometimes I get lost with the guests. But we definitely appreciate your hot take. And again, one bad mother from Xbox era, dude. Thank you so much for the patience. Your cat
Hey,
is
it's all
behind
good.
you doing a whole bunch of
Yeah.
things. It's great. It's great. It's great for viewership. Everyone loves cats.
That's what I'm here.
So they-
I'm here so that people can watch my cat.
I love it. Well, at least the cat's not jumping on you like it did the last
Well,
time.
he stopped licking his butt, which I appreciate.
Excellent.
That
Excellent.
was
Now
yeah.
let's get your let's get your hot take on this. Obviously, this came as a shock to everyone. Again, a couple of weeks ago, Xbox gamers, executives for ABK, Lulu Chang being one of them, we all believed that this deal was done. When Sony got moved off the board, we were like, yeah, there's no way that cloud's going to be an issue. Microsoft is giving deals to everyone that wants to be a part of it. Just take a 10-year deal. It's like the Oprah Winfrey episode. You get a car, everyone gets a car, everyone gets a deal, right? And I was stunned very early this morning. I got up specifically to get ahead of this, and I was stunned. What are your hot takes on this, brother?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things have been said. A couple side aspects of this, and even as we've been talking about this all year, I've always been pretty confident on the fact that it was going to get done based off the fact that nothing that I'm aware of that's been defined as a vertical merger has been blocked in the last 5 decades. And I was like, well, what is that going to look like now that they've done that? And now we know what that looks like now that they've done it. And, I tend to agree that based on what we've learned with the way CMA works, that the chances are slim. And at the end of the day, if it's going to be back in the CMA's hands, I don't really think the thing is, like, we keep going back and forth. Like, well, did they understand this? And like people, I've been in Discords and forums, and people have been highlighting things like they're asking, like, one of the things they were asking them wasn't even technically possible. Something, some thing they were asking from Microsoft in terms of how this whole thing would work. And I really, the one thing that kind of like hovered over this thing from the beginning, Kay Sante said it, that, we weren't really sure how much this was going to be, logical and based on precedent versus the political aspect of it. And that's something I thought about early on, but at the end of the day, I just, it looked like things were going to move in that direction where it was going to be based on precedent and, markets and the way things are defined in the past. The thing that I think a lot of people in our bubble really don't talk a lot about, or really are probably not aware of, is that the things that the CMA and the FTC are, the people that have been put in place in a lot of these agencies, the concern that's out there, I would even say a lot of it is legitimate. Like, I don't necessarily agree with how it's applied to this situation, but a lot of the fear that's out there for big tech is, you have former employees of big tech that are basically not lobbying, but they're going to the government and saying, guys, like if you cannot keep letting these guys get access to all these people, their data, allowing them to, with this AI that 99.9999% of the world doesn't understand, that's able to like manipulate their habits. And so, like, when you kind of looked at this deal in all those aspects, you kind of look back now at it and you kind of like understand what these conversations are about. This deal checks every one of those boxes. This is ABK has access to millions of people, access to their data, gets them to sign up for things. They understand how to manipulate buying habits and engagement with free-to-play models and things like that. And now you're tying it into something that's even more accessible and subscription. It really ticks every single box that every one of these guys that have been like yelling at the government. It's like, stop waiting for laws. It's like, this is going too fast for us. We don't have the laws to keep up. And so you need to go beyond precedent and create new precedent. You can't wait for you can't wait for the old system. It's not prepared for this. And so, that's always been there. The thing about this, and I think the reason why Microsoft is going to take this probably to the end, regardless of how bleak it may look at times, is the way it's not just that this deal got shut down. because I'm with Asante, and probably some of the other guys. I'm ready to move on. I don't really care that much about. I don't care at all about Candy Crush. I'm probably never going to play World of Warcraft. Like I said, I played Call of Duty once in a while. It was never that special of a deal to me. The only thing that I would be concerned about as an Xbox fan, or somebody who's a fan of the platform or games on it, is that the way this thing, it's the why, it's the why they use. And they talked about subscription, they talked about cloud, and whether we think cloud is the future or not, Nadella does, and that's one of the reasons he bought into the gaming. And I know it's not all of it. It's, they want to put their chips on like every square, right? So I'm going to be interested. At this point, I'm kind of out of predictions because I'm just not going to try at this point, but I am interested to see what the end game is, because I think a couple of factors we don't think about is like, I agree with everything Luke said. I've kind of looked up, and really that's all I'm not somebody who's going to disagree anyways. I don't have the experience, but that's really kind of what you find out, right? That this is the uphill battle based on where it's at. The thing I wonder about, CMA is a newer organization. This whole Brexit thing is something that's not been around forever. This is probably the most unprecedented thing that's happened of scale. And it will be very interesting if, Microsoft does get the EU to say yes, and then they go to the courts and they get get the deal in the US. And if they leave UK on an island, I'm kind of curious what that is, what their end game is. Like, if they know that the CMA, there's no logical argument here. It's really all philosophical, ideological, and political. So there's really nothing they're going to say to change their mind. So what is that end game? I have absolutely no clue. I'm curious if Luke has an idea, or if we're all just going to kind of find out about this together. But at the end of the day, I do think it's just one of these things that, what I want to see from Microsoft is, I do want to see them, I do want to still see signs that they are invested in this, that they're not going to step back, because I do think they have been playing possum, or not playing possum, but they've just been, all in on focus.
Too laser focused on this deal, and some people would even suggest that they've lost sight of the platform. I like I said, this is going to be a big year for Xbox.
Yeah.
The games are coming, folks. Again, yeah, sure. Maybe 30 frames, it should have been 60. Okay, as long as the game plays good, I'll look past it. Starfield delayed. Just like coming in September, it's got to slap. Motorsports got to slap. A surprise banger at the end. Maybe we get Hellblade. You get four major first party games. Yeah, the ABK deal sucks, but we're here to play games, folks. I'm not here to worry about Microsoft's bottom line. They were at one point a near $3 trillion company. They're going to be fine. I'm mad. I'm disappointed with the CMA. I'm shocked that the cloud, the excuses for cloud and the suggestion that cloud is gonna come in and is gonna take over gaming is laughable. It's laughable because this is coming from people who don't play games. And I think that ultimately is the problem. Luke, you made mention of it. I'm glad you confirmed that, yes, that they were educated and they still came to this decision, which is shocking. But again, folks, we're closing in on 2.5 hours. I knew this was going to be a longer show. We had over 10 people on the panel. Some people came in for a hot second. Again, huge thank you and much love to Pong Soul and One Mother and Luke for the patience. Obviously, Hargeet and Kayasante, giving their spiel. Let me just catch up on the last couple of super chats that popped in here. And then we'll get on out of here. We have Savart's Writer 7 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, but Microsoft should pay third parties for the development of exclusives? ? Remember that SE charged Microsoft $100 million for time exclusivity for one game, Tomb Raider. I mean, I get it. That's a lot of money, and I don't think Microsoft made the money back, especially the way the press treated them. I mean, are exclusives super important to the platform, or at least in my opinion? And I'm just a knucklehead podcaster. Is the real and true exclusive is getting said third-party game, even though it releases on Steam and PlayStation and Nintendo, into Xbox Game Pass day and date. You see, that right there is money that I think is well spent, because people are going to look to, again, we're not out of a recession yet, folks. We're not even close. And money is still very difficult for a lot of families. And the family plan is coming and they need content. And this is where they're going to have to really get third parties and second party games, get people. I mean, we know that Sarah Bond is out there doing that right now. She is targeting certain things. Games are in there because of her and her team. They need to put the pedal to the metal. They need to really spend the money to get these third party deals for not exclusivity. Like I said, the exclusivity part is much, much higher than saying, yeah, release your game everywhere. We don't care, but we want it in Game Pass. What's the number? And I think if they can do that, they can still generate interest for the platform, but ultimately for Microsoft, they need to deliver in first party. We need to go and say, holy shit, Redfall's amazing, or my God, Starfield, I'm never playing another game for the rest of my life. I'll see you in 5 years.
That's the
what
thing,
we
Boom.
need.
They have all the tools with their AI and everything they have resource wise. They really could, they really have everything they need to build their own. Like, holy shit, I need to go play that game. Well,
Yeah,
sorry,
they do.
The first smart game that comes out, One Bad Mother, is going to be interesting, right? When it uses AI incorporated in, and
that's a whole nother show. I can't wait to talk about that. There's some there's a lot of great opportunities, and it's going to be nice to get to the point where we can start, talking about
games.
other than parsing. Let's stop parsing whatever comes out of these documents. I'm going to listen to Hogue, and then I'm going to let it go.
Yeah. Listen, absolutely good stuff. Real quick, Everborn Saga dropped a $2 super chat and says there is zero chance the FTC negotiates now. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. They're gonna have to take them to federal court. There's no doubt. And Andy Angard drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Can Microsoft buy out each of ABK studios one by one over the next few years as a workaround for this CMA nonsense?" I mean, they can acquire studios, but the hard aspect of that is 8 studios build a single Call of Duty. So how do you pick? Do they buy Infinity Ward and then they lose that talent, or do they buy Toys for Bob and they it's
and you never convince the shareholders to
even if they bought King, there's an argument to be made that King, they use the King money to help produce COD.
Yeah.
So there's just no way you can separate them.
I don't think you're allowed to anyway, because you already made the offer to buy the whole thing. That would be bypassing a regulatory decision. I don't think you're allowed to. Do you know that? I think that's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah, no, it's not legally possible. I mean, there's multiple reasons why it's not possible. One is because any regulator will know exactly what you're doing, launch an anti-competition probe, and will just destroy you for it. If you're Microsoft, and two, if you're Activision, to sell assets like that, you're ultimately going to have to get shareholder approval. Shareholders never going to approve the sale of significant assets because it devalues their shares.
100%. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. And Spartan661 dropped a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Boom and friends, all of you are great. Thank you for the very kind words, brother, and thank you for the generosity." But listen, let's get the outros. Pong Soul, listen, it was so great to work with you again. We got to get you back on some of the other shows, but you're here, there, and everywhere. But more so than where you are everywhere, I want to specifically focus on where you are on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with I Steel Rain. You guys are still in the hunt for 1K. Folks, if you're not subscribed to Living Split Screen. I am telling you, you are doing it all freaking wrong. Sell your brand, brother. Talk about it.
Thank you, sir. No, it was great to be back with you, Boom, for sure. Obviously, brother, it's been way too long, but everybody that showed up tonight, awesome to hear all of your comments. Again, first time being able to talk about this little topic. So this was awesome. I was glad when you sent the invite because I could actually make this one happen. Thank you for the invite. Glad to be here. Going to hear more tomorrow night, PM in the PM over on Fun Speculations channel, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Central Time. You know, Mav and I are going to be diving into this. And then Xbox Ultimate, you'll get even more talk with more people's conversation about this on Friday night, obviously at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time. And then, of course, as Boom mentioned, Living Split Screen every Saturday morning alongside our partners over at the Gaming Circle podcast. Yes, we are Saturday brothers in arms with them. But check me and Steele out. We have a great 3+ hour show every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time, where we get your weekend started right with live, raw, and uncut energy, as my brother Steele likes to say. And we're going to have a lot to say. We'll probably have some community rants and everything else. We talk about everything there on Saturday morning. So thank you, Boom, for pushing that out. We just passed 800. So we are getting close. We are getting close, everybody.
Yes.
So check
Love
us out. And then, of course, I have to mention the Shop Podcast, Saturday night, PTK Blam's channel, number 300 this weekend.
Wow.
Big deal for PTK. We've got Lord Cognito coming on as a guest. I'm sure some other people will be stopping by for that. We have a great time on Saturday night. It's PTK Blam's channel, the Shop Podcast. Fuzzy Belvedere's there, myself, and like I said, Cog's going to be there this week. So please drop on in, pay some respect, say hi, and just stay a while because we have great conversations there every Saturday night. Otherwise, it's the golden age of gaming, people. It really, really is. Despite all this business talk, all this lawyer talk, politics, it's invaded my safe space here in video games. It is what it is. It's fascinating to me, but we do have a ton of games to play.
Oh,
Please,
dude, you
get
got
out
Benedict
there.
Fox this week. You got Jedi Survivor.
Jedi Survivor. For all of you jumping into that, have a great time. I'm going to jump into that later. I got Age of Wonders 4 coming. It's 4X strategy game on May 2nd, which has never come to console, their mainline franchise. That's what I've got pre-ordered, so I'm looking forward to that. Listen, there's everything for everyone out there right now. So get out there, play what you love what you play, and I'll talk to you all
brother.
real soon.
Luke Steele, brother, thank you again for your patience and, of course, more importantly, the incredible knowledge that you bring. Talk about where people can follow you and may want to reach out to you and ask some questions because your knowledge is stout. But where can people find you on other podcasts? And one, Indie Gamer, one of the most genuine, nice human beings you'll ever meet. I love the fact that you work with him each and every week. Talk about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, always a pleasure. So I mean, for me, you can find me at LukeSteele90 on Twitter. I'm always happy to answer questions. People do DM me with questions, and I do try and I answer them all. Actually, I'm great like that. So, So if you have questions, maybe some that I haven't been able to talk about today, you know, a few questions about ring fencing, for example, I'm happy to answer those. Do that on Twitter. And then, Indie Gamer's great guy, and I'm on the Indie Game podcast on his channel, which is usually every couple of weeks, if we can, and we do other videos as well. Yeah. So if you're into indie games, and you should be, because it's a really great one coming up, as has been mentioned on Friday, which is The Last Case of Benedict Fox, which everybody's looking forward to. I can't wait. Go check that channel out, and pleasure as always. Boom.
Thank you, brother. Definitely appreciate it. And speaking of Saturday morning, you're not tuning in for cartoons. You're tuning in for the Gaming Circle podcast, which should be your Saturday morning cartoon, along with Pong Soul. You should be switching the channels as I used to do as a kid. One was Transformers, the other thing was something else. Sell your brand, brother. Talk about where people can check out a very, very big episode you have planned for this Saturday on the Gaming Circle podcast. Talk about it.
Sure. Well, thanks to everybody who came out. You know, a lot of conversations, a lot of it was cordial in the chat, which I wasn't expecting as
was
much.
great.
It was cordial. It was
People took it
by
better
and
than I
large.
thought.
Fantastic.
By and large, it was cordial. So yes, thank you guys for being here in the chat, and of course my brethren here on the panel, Luke. Always a pleasure chatting with you. A member of the 191 Teraflop Club, sir. Indeed. Yes.
The best club in the world,
with
by the
pinkies in the air and all of that. Yes.
Once you've seen Cyberpunk Overdrive, your life is changed.
You've changed your life. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Stop
of course,
it!
the man.
I'm already jealous enough. Stop.
Did you see the
Pong
PC
Soul.
that this man built, Pong?
Stop
Holy
it. Stop.
Of course I did. Of course
Yes,
I
yes,
did.
yes.
Living
No.
vicariously.
It is good to chat with you guys on a weekly basis and to get to chat with you, Luke, and Pong whenever we can. Yes, myself and Pong, so we make it a 2-tabbed weekend, and as we do, the GCP Gaming Circle podcast this weekend will be interesting. I will be having the man Post Up along
Nice.
with Italian Clowns will be joining
Oh
us.
wow!
Both
What a
of them.
great show! What a
Yes,
great
yes.
show, dude. Yeah.
The idea was either they'll be celebrating on the Xbox camp or there'll be a lot of sulking. So tune in for the sulking, ladies and gentlemen. No,
Yeah, well,
it should be
is
an
life.
interesting conversation. Such is life, indeed. But no, we'll talk about things like where we think they should move on from. How give some more time, some dust to settle. Maybe get some more context around what's
Yep.
going on in the ABK space. So this Saturday, expect to hear from us, and we'll have some good conversations there as well. But no, it's always great to chat with folks in the chat and people on the panel, and just having that great gaming conversations that we can have without it getting absolutely ridiculous. So once again, you guys have shown why primetime gaming. The chat tends to be the best chat in the world, and you guys are always
Thank you, sir.
always very, very cordial. So thank you guys so much. Before we go, Boom, there is one last super chat I just put into the
Yes, Top Shada drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Cat overrule CMA on JD Sports appeal for being irrational."
for being irrational. Yeah. So there are some past historical evidence that people are now clinging their hopes to. I just want them to walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm sure Luke. Go ahead, throw some water on us. Go ahead, throw some water on
no,
it.
that is partly true. They didn't overrule the CMA. They did say that the CMA erred with some irrationality because, in terms of a merger that JD Sports were involved in, they didn't take into account the effects of COVID-19 on the potential competitive effects of that merger. So they did send it back to the CMA on that basis and said, consider that point. The CMA considered the point and they said, makes no difference. Merge is still blocked. So they didn't overrule them. They've never said your decision's wrong, right? Or
They can't do that. Can
they can't. Yeah, they can't. Right, they have ultimate deference to the CMA in that regard. So it's cool that someone's highlighted that because that is true, but there's just an important caveat to what
Still
that
blocked
is.
it ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of trying to. I kind of feel like Microsoft might be trying to ice skate uphill, as was said famously
hard.
by Blade. He just said it with an MF in front of that. But Hargeet Chani, look, we actually saw a video come up today from Asa. It's great to see him out there doing his thing over at Game On Daily. Gaz, I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say on his show regarding this. There may even be a salt video potentially, but please sell the brand of Game On Daily.
Yeah.
And more importantly, I'm going to say he's not on social media, so don't ask, but he can
Not on
tell you
social
where
media,
his
no.
gamer tag is. Talk
Yep.
about it, Hargeet.
Yeah, so definitely check that out. And I guess I don't know if we should answer this ring fencing thing since it was a super chat. I don't know if we want to get that. I don't know if it's a big deal, Luke. Is that like a really involved thing or?
I mean, Boom. I mean, I can address it in
please.
like 2 minutes
quickly.
if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even understand what a ring fencing is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a comment from I think Idus on the Reset Era forum, and I think what he's referring to is he mentions maybe Microsoft could ring fence their Activision Blizzard activities, for example, in the UK, and he comments that banks did this in the UK, and so I think I get what he's talking about, but it doesn't really work because just really quickly, in the UK after the financial crisis, there was legislation introduced for banks, specifically financial reform information, that said if you have a deposit taking business, you have to ring fence, you have to keep that entirely structurally separate from, say, your investment business. And the reason for that was to protect consumers who, obviously, banks have huge deposit taking businesses. We all have bank accounts, right? So it was to ensure that none of that money effectively goes into the pot where the bank has a business around investments. It was very specifically introduced. So I think what IDIS is saying, what the intention would be Microsoft say structurally this thing, Activision Blizzard in the UK, is completely separate. Doesn't work for the purposes of CMA merger, because ultimately Microsoft still can have significant control via various other means through what Activision Blizzard do in the UK. And notwithstanding that, even if you ignore all of that, the CMA have already prohibited the merger. Microsoft can't ring fence anything because they can't own Activision Blizzard at the moment because the CMA blocked it, right? So just wouldn't happen. I could go into way more detail than that, and probably more coherently than that, given it's 2:40 in the morning in the UK here. But that's effectively my thoughts on it. So it just wouldn't be possible. It's kind of conflating very separate things that were done for very different reasons.
Yeah. Oh, I thank you for the clarification, and Hargeet, thank you so much for bringing that up. And last and no way least,
I haven't actually done my outro though. It's like, so first, like, everybody should check out the Zelda previews came out. I know nobody seems to want to talk about that. Like, hey, Zelda looking good. It's already getting gaudy noms. Like, it's great, and that's previews. It hasn't even gotten to the reviews yet. So people are loving it already. They got to play 1 hour, and there's already stuff up on Meta just talking about what they've experienced, and it's all positive.
So dude, yeah, it's going to be the biggest game of the year. I mean, just one of the biggest games of the year.
Yes, we actually got some good stuff today, right? So, and for those who are so worried, the end of the world, Quantum Break had left Game Pass.
It's back in. Yeah.
It's back today. Anyway, yeah, check out GameOnDaily.com, YouTube.com/GameOnDaily, and Gaz's new name on YouTube is Septic Sauce, and we did a little video together.
Sauce.
Yeah, Septic Sauce. And so we did a little 1.5 hour or so ish podcast, and we'll probably do more of those, just Gaz and me talking about stuff that we were interested in talking about. So I don't know what day we'll end up doing. We did the last one on Friday. We might do one on Thursday or Friday again, but we'll try to figure that out and do that more often. RDX 8 p.m. US Eastern Time. Check that out, and then of course right here, Primetime Gaming 7 p.m. US Eastern Time on Wednesdays.
Yeah, Hargeet, if people want to reach out to you on Xbox, where
Johnny is the gamer tag on Xbox,
and that's the only place they could find you because you don't even bother.
Or Discord, and I think it's what was the number there? It's 3935. So Johnny again, and then the number sign 3935.
There you go. I don't use Discord, so I understand the number thing, but I don't even use it. But Hargeet, thanks so much for the hard facts and the hot take information. Love what you're doing on RDX with Dealer and that crew. Actually, we were talking about Dealer and you the other day. He DM'd me. We were talking back and forth, and I was telling him that was such a great get to have you on the show. And he let me know that you guys have been friends for a very long time, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's been a few years now, yeah.
Yeah, so it's good that you're a part of that show, and we definitely appreciate you being a part of this show each and every week. So thank you so much for that. And One Bad Mother, obviously Xbox era, and Jesse Norris just put out an incredible review for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I was a guest on what seemed to be an 18-hour podcast on Saturday.
Right. Australians don't know how to get to the point. I don't know if
I mean,
they gave you the
I'm going to be honest with you. I was a lot to blame because we kept talking about 80s cartoons and Thundercats and things. So I kind of jumped off here, there, and everywhere. I got roped into a Manscaped ad that went completely off the rails. And I was actually instructed by Jesse Norris. It was almost like the mafia. Read this game that you're going to be a part of playing. So Jesse Norris, a bully. By all means, sell your brand, One Bad Mother. Talk about You Had Us at Halo, which is a Halo podcast, and also about the Xbox era.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks again. It's nice getting to see you again, Boom. I've been, it's been a busy point in life. I will be ramping up some content creation finally again. I just actually just a week ago I was going to build a new PC, and initially it was going to be modest with one of those 4070 Ti's. And then the guy asked me, he says, "But is this powerful enough to run Redfall at 60 frames?" And I said, "Oh my god!" So I went and got a 4090 with an i9. So I joined the club.
Nice. Good for you, brother.
I saw your
Good
specs, OBM. Yours are like mine, basically. It's basically the same machine you built. It's
Wait,
very
you didn't
cool.
get the
And
7800
you both
XPD?
copied me, by the way. So
There you go.
So there you
Luke is
go.
The originator. There you go. Let's get that straight.
Now, are you liquid cooled, Luke? Are you liquid cooled, sir?
absolutely no need to be liquid cooled on the 4090s.
I'm liquid cooled. Thank you.
I'm
very
liquid
much.
cooled.
Absolutely
Yeah.
no,
So I'll be-
no need.
I'll be putting that to the test here with some content. I've actually been working on some pieces for the studios. We'll start with Arcane actually, so that should be coming out soon. And then for anybody that is a Halo fan, we still run our You Had Me at Halo show. It's no longer bi-weekly right now. It's kind of like more when things hit to talk about.
Yeah,
so
news,
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah, things have been a little bit slower on that, but look for that. You Had Me at Halo, and if you follow me, I when we're about to go, I let you all know about it. But guys, I think this. I'm just looking forward to talking about some
Games.
other things, man.
Yeah, me too.
games,
I agree.
technology. Like, there's a lot of stuff. Luke, I wish we had if it wasn't so late already, and it wasn't already almost 3 a.m. your time, but I do think something that we want to revisit when people can delve further into some of the documents is really what is the precedent, because Microsoft moving forward, obviously that seems like a very likely thing at this point from this eventually, and the question is cloud and subscription seems to be a focus. So does that really preclude them from anything significant? Are they going to have to going to have to start being a lot more discreet now? Like, does that mean smaller studios building them up from the ground up, or like what is that going to limit them to? So I think that's going to be an interesting thing, because the one thing that never existed before this was precedent, but we have that now. So worth revisiting next time we come back.
Definitely.
But guys, really enjoyed seeing everybody here and talking gaming again.
Yeah, it was great to have everybody here again. 950 plus people tuned in. We missed the 1K by a pinch. I can't thank you enough. That's incredible numbers for a channel that only has 12,000 subscribers. We picked up a bunch of subscribers today. If you are new, you just found the channel, please consider subscribing. We do this 5 days a week, 5 different panels, all great news, all great content. We never use hate or clickbait to get you in the door. We just talk about games. We have a lot of fun doing it. Spartan661 adds an additional $5 super chat and says Xbox is not finished. Indeed, they are not. And of course, folks, listen, again, if you are a big shout out to all the super chats. I mean, we can't do the giveaways. We can't do the upgrades to lighting and programs and equipment that we need on a yearly basis for the podcast without the help of channel membership as well as super chat. So thank you so much for the incredible generosity. And of course, folks, I'm going to close out the show with something that's important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you, you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.